In the training room, Mujin continues swinging his sword until sweat drenches every part of him. His siblings Hua Dojin and Soyeon quietly come to see him, afraid he might break himself before the battle even starts. Soyeon even believes he is training so desperately because of the cruel things she said earlier. But Mujin only pats their heads and calmly tells them there is no need to worry. Then, as he watches the children imitate his stance, a sudden realization flashes through his mind. He understands that the true secret of the peerless 9 swords is not only in the swing. The key lies in breathing. As soon as he begins applying the breathing method, his movements transform in an instant. His 100-kilo sword feels lighter, and his energy circulates far more smoothly. At last, he grasps how movement arts truly function. And with a single forceful swing, Mujin slices through a statue. After that, Mujin chooses to head to the training hall, since the training room feels too narrow. The following day, the clan warriors still look at him as though he is nothing but a joke. That is when Mujin decides to prove that the useless madman they remember no longer exists. MC Mujin goes up against the squad leader Shilboin, and he toys with him as if dealing with a child. He even avoids an attack while suspended in midair. This infuriates Boyne, who demands that our MC face him properly like a man. Mujin then lands back on the ground. He lifts his 100-kilo sword as though it weighs almost nothing. As both of them charge straight toward each other, Mujin swiftly draws his sword back. Then he hits Boyne's blade with such force that the weapon is knocked away. Seizing the opening, he lands a heavy punch on Boyne's face, nearly crushing his nose. It sends him slamming down onto the ground. Everyone else is stunned, because he had never shown this kind of strength before. Understand how our MC is able to overpower a squad leader like this, we need to return to the beginning. Our MC, once known as the Divine Demon, was an extraordinary swordsman who eventually found himself facing 9 mighty sect leaders on a path driven by vengeance. His swordsmanship was both incredible and fearsome. It allowed him to stand against the sect leaders on equal ground. He struck them down with astonishing precision, so much so that they could not understand how he was doing it. Before they fully realized what was happening, they were defeated one after another, leading them to believe that our MC was nothing less than a monster. Even when the remaining enemies pinned him down and drove a sword through his heart, he still endured and brought all of them to their final end. In the end, his name was firmly engraved as the Divine Demon. Just as he is about to lose his life, his past flashes before his eyes, and he feels relief knowing he has completed his mission. MC recalls the time 3 children surrounded and attacked him, back when he was a troublemaker in Murim. In the end, his master was the one who saved him. That master trained him, but ultimately, he chose a life ruled by the sword. He spent his days cutting down enemies wherever he went. He begins to wonder whether that was all his life ever amounted to. At that moment, the memory of his late wife returns to him. The happiest times in his life were the moments he shared with her, but those precious days were eventually taken from him. With tears in his eyes, he questions what meaning his life truly had. And finally, he closes his eyes as death takes him. Suddenly, he hears angry voices echoing around him. He immediately assumes he must have ended up in hell, but when he opens his eyes, he sees a noisy group standing before him, mocking him without restraint. Our MC is completely bewildered, unable to understand anything about what is going on. Beside him stand 2 children, and the boy steps forward to defend his older brother, insisting they cannot surrender the clan's martial arts while his brother is still alive. He says that whatever happens, those martial arts must stay within their clan, the Flamua clan. While RMC is still trying to figure out what is going on, the opposing leader proposes a bargain that would settle all their concerns at once. He addresses our MC as Hua Mujin and says he is willing to offer money, since Mujin's clan is desperately poor. In exchange, Mujin must stake his clan's martial arts in a duel, and whoever wins will take everything. The young boy is stunned by this, because his older brother, RMC, is completely hopeless when it comes to martial arts. RMC is already exhausted by all the commotion, and is clearly irritated. He is forced to ask the group who Mujin is supposed to be, even though he already understands that he is in fact someone entirely different. His so-called younger siblings are baffled by his words, staring at him as if he has lost his mind. Even his rival has to ask what he just said, and Mujin declares that he is known as the Divine Demon. This only makes the rival laugh, and he tells Mujin to call him the king of the underworld instead. Apparently, this irritating opponent is Cheongdobo, the second son of the Cheonghua merchant group. Mujin's siblings grow furious, believing his madness has gone too far, which is why he is spouting such nonsense. Even Bukoyan, the master of the Tianqua merchant group, openly mocks the clan. He says their clan is finished now that the eldest son is mentally unstable. Mujin stays quiet, still trying to understand the situation. Since Mujin gives no answer, Dobo takes it as acceptance and announces that the duel will happen at Bang Pavilion next month. Dobo warns Mujin that the agreement was made under the martial arts code, so breaking it will bring serious consequences. After the group leaves, Mujin's supposed siblings turn their attention to him. They ask what he intends to do now that a duel has been forced on him. To make matters worse, Mujin has never even swung a sword. Mujin bursts into laughter at that, because to him, swordsmanship is the very thing he has lived and breathed. He tries to show off by drawing on his inner energy. He suddenly discovers that it is gone, completely vanished without even the slightest trace remaining. His frustration deepens when he realizes his current body is fragile and terribly weak. His sister breaks down in tears, begging Mujin to finally come back to his senses. The little girl calls Mujin worthless and foolish for letting the merchant group trample all over him. Brother scolds her for speaking so harshly to their brother and tells her to apologize, but she refuses. She blames Mujin for the deaths of their parents. After saying that, she runs away with tears in her eyes. The young boy apologizes for his sister, explaining that anger sometimes makes her lose control. Once he says this, he leaves as well. Mujin is completely bewildered, unable to believe that even children now despise him and call him insane. Mujin remains confused, knowing that the last thing he can remember is cutting down the sect leaders without hesitation. Mujin thinks he should have already met a quiet end, yet somehow he has awakened inside an unfamiliar body. Overwhelmed by frustration, he collapses to the ground. He wonders who those children were. That moment, a strange man who appears to be his assistant rushes toward him. The man asks why he went outside in such a frail condition and says he has been worried about him. Mujin, however, simply asks who he is since he clearly has no idea. The man, Masok, is shocked and assumes Mujin has suffered another episode caused by his madness. Believing Mujin truly has amnesia, he decides to explain his past. Apparently, Hua Mujin was once a gifted and respected child, and many orthodox sects wanted to take him in as a disciple. By the age of 23, he had become the clan leader. Masok is already tired of telling the story, since he has repeated it over 6,000 times. Mujin doubts he was ever that promising, since his energy core is clearly terrible. He also wants to know what this madness everyone keeps mentioning is about. Masok decides to explain that part as well. 17 years earlier, Mujin and Dobo held an unofficial duel, agreeing not to use inner energy. Mujin was 6 at the time while Dobo was 9, and Dobo accepted the rule. Then the fight between the two children began, but as their duel continued, Dobo went back on their agreement and struck Mujin with a punch strengthened by inner energy. Mujin is disappointed and asks Dobo why he used the 7-wound fist when they had clearly agreed to fight only with ordinary punches. Dobo mocks Mujin, saying the technique was handed down through the Kongdong sect. Its after effects were apparently extremely serious. Dobo had already tested it on his arrogant older brother, and that technique left him confined to bed. Since Dobo was pleased with the result, he was eager to see what would happen if he used it on Mujin. In short, Mujin became known as a madman, because people believe his condition came from the after effects of the 7-wound fist. Mujin is furious that Dobo was the one who ruined him, yet now that same person is demanding a duel. Mujin then asks Masok what they did to Dobo after he left him in such a state. Seok Hildo then explains that Mujin's father was the one who later delivered the final judgment. Although Dobo was his cousin, he was also the heir of the Cheonghua merchant group, a force ranked among the top 10 in the Central Plains. Even after Dobo committed such a terrible act, Mujin's father merely gave him a warning and let the matter pass. Mujin could hardly believe how useless that man was, forgiving someone who had left his own son completely ruined. Mujin decides the entire clan is nothing but garbage, then turns to Masok and asks where his parents are. Masok explains that Mujin's condition continued to deteriorate little by little. Because of that, his father fell into debt while desperately searching for a way to cure him. 9 years earlier, his mother's illness had worsened severely, and she eventually lost her life to it. 3 years after that, his father followed his mother into the afterlife. In the end, Mujin became known as the son who brought death to his parents and dragged the clan into ruin. Because of this, the clan's name was badly damaged, and his siblings were pushed into hardship. All that remained were debts, 2 faithful retainers, and a handful of martial artists. He also still had his younger brother, Huadojin, and his younger sister, Hua Soyan. Mujin finally understands why his sister Soyan blame for everything that happened to their parents. That night, Mujin searched through the historical records left behind by the body's original owner. From those records, he managed to learn several important things. He discovered that 30 years had already passed since the day he defeated the 9 sects, and now he was living inside the body of a madman who had no energy core at all. Since our MC had no lingering regrets from his former life, he chose to live on as Mujin. He also decided to lend a hand to the helpless children left behind. However, he understands that the Cheonghua merchant group will become a serious obstacle. After all, they were the ones who ruined this body and helped destroy the clan. His first priority is preparing for the duel against Dobo, which is scheduled for the following month. Since this body is in terrible condition, he realizes he must rebuild it from the very beginning. He sits down in meditation and begins again from the basics, just like a complete beginner. He recalls how difficult it had been in his previous life when he first attempted cultivation. However, with this current body, Everything progresses surprisingly well, thanks to its extraordinary natural talent for martial arts. Mujin draws upon the body's astonishing energy and tries to examine its full potential. A brilliant golden light then spreads throughout his room. Before long, Masok and the retainers hear his cries and signs of struggle from where they are. This sends them rushing into his room, where they find him collapsed on the floor. One of the retainers even jokes that Mujin has already died, but after checking Mujin's pulse, he realizes it is stronger than it was before. Then Mujin suddenly reaches out and grabs him. He asks why his body is in such unbearable pain simply because he tried to create an energy core. The retainer is puzzled, so Mujin asks again, wanting to know whether his body has some kind of special constitution. The retainer then reveals that he possesses the heavenly martial body, a rare heroic constitution said to be chosen by the heavens. Another surge of pain strikes Mujin, and he finally realizes this constitution is the complete opposite of demonic arts. In other words, a body filled with pure righteous energy suffers terribly when forced to practice demonic arts. Mujin cries out, wondering why he had to receive such an incompatible constitution. He realizes his situation is extremely bad, especially with the duel only 1 month away. While lying there in pain, he asks Masok who the two men are. Masok explains that the man in green is Chief Steward Du Baixin, while the man in red is Elder Zhou Huanbong. The moment Mujin hears the name Zhu, something from his past life comes to mind, but the pain is far too intense. In the end, he loses consciousness. 3 days later, Mujin finally rises from the place where he had been lying, though Masok worries he has not rested enough. Mujin says he is tired of staying in bed, especially when a duel is waiting for him. He then orders Masok to bring him some swords. Masok barely holds back his laughter, since the clan is still struggling just to find food, yet Mujin is asking for swords. Mujin has no choice but to ask whether the family has no money. Masok explains that they are currently borrowing money from an unorthodox group called the Bango sect, which charges extremely high interest. As a result, they have sunk deep into debt. Mujin finally understands that if he wants to save the clan, he must solve the money problem first. Even so, Mujin figures that taking on more loans will not make much difference, since they are already buried in debt. The word debt alone makes Masok visibly uneasy, but Mujin tells him to be quiet and write letters to the two elders, saying he is going out for a walk. When the elders hear about this, they become anxious after learning that Mujin has headed toward the dangerous Bangho sect. Before long, Mujin and Masok arrive at the entrance of the Bangho sect. Mujin tells the large guard to inform his boss that he wishes to meet him. The guard, Kang Noho, has no patience for nonsense and tells Mujin to go inside if he came there to gamble. Mujin keeps insisting that Kang take him to his boss, which begins to irritate Kang. Masok quickly steps in, asking him to calm down because Mujin is not quite right in the head. Tension between them keeps growing until the Vaster appears. Ma Jungbo of the sect steps forward and demands to know what is going on. Kang then tells his superior that Mujin is asking to meet their top boss. Ma asks why he wants to meet their boss, and Mujin answers that he is hoping to borrow more money. Ma then explains that Mujin does not have to meet the leader just to receive another loan, after saying that he leads him inside the building. Before long, Mujin and Masok are guided deeper into the manor across a wooden bridge, escorted on both sides by armed swordsmen. Masok grows uneasy and tells Mujin they can still turn back before things go wrong, but Mujin refuses, saying they have already come this far. Masok then mentions that a certain old woman once witnessed the sect leader in battle. According to her, the leader was extremely powerful and defeated his opponent almost instantly. He is said to be a martial artist who mastered a dangerous killing technique. Mujin begins wondering why Masok is telling him this, but Ma interrupts before he can finish. Ma says Masok knows more than expected, since he understood the situation rather quickly. Unfortunately, it is already too late for them, as they have arrived at a much deeper section of the cave. Before they can react, the two realize they are completely surrounded by armed swordsmen. Mujin looks disappointed and asks Ma whether this had been his plan from the very beginning. Ma admits it openly, saying he let Mujin come inside because he clearly could not deal with him in public. Still, he has no intention of letting Mujin act freely the way he once allowed his parents to. Masok does not try to argue with them, but he desperately pleads for them to spare his master. Mujin, however, becomes furious when Ma brings up his parents, since he knows he never had any. Then it suddenly hits him that he is now living inside someone else's body. With everything prepared, Ma orders his men to teach Mujin a harsh lesson. One of them, clearly eager to follow the command, charges at Mujin and swings a punch. Masok nearly collapses from fear as the strike comes straight toward them. To everyone's surprise, Mujin catches the man's punch. The impact ends up damaging his bones from within. The man cries out in pain and he drops to the ground, accusing Mujin of using cheap tricks. Mujin mocks him instead, saying his bones are surprisingly weak for someone his size. Mujin realizes that he needs to handle the fight without relying on his raw strength. Ma grows angry that his men are dragging things out, so he orders them to bring Mujin down at once. One of the swordsmen rushes directly toward him with his blade raised. Mujin slips away from the attack with ease and quickly understands that he has to stay mobile, since matching the man's strength directly is not an option. Using his flexible body, he dodges smoothly and lands a headbutt that leaves the man badly hurt. The swordsman staggers backward, crying out in pain as another one of his comrades steps in and tries to cut Mujin down. Mujin avoids the slash without difficulty. The attacker swings again, but Mujin leaps back before following up with a kick that knocks the man out of the fight. Before the armed men can fully understand what is happening, they realize Mujin is playing with them. In just a short time, they all collapse to their knees on the ground. From a distance, Masak shouts anxiously, wanting to confirm that his master is unharmed. Mujin calls him slow-witted and says he is fine. Masak is stunned and asks where he learned such skills. But Mujin says it is not martial arts, only something he picked up on the streets. Praises him for managing to deal with his men so effectively. But in the next instant, he sends a coin flying at Mujin with tremendous force. The coin barely misses Mujin's head, yet the pressure behind it is strong enough to leave him shocked. Ma then angrily orders his men to step aside, saying he will handle Mujin personally. Mujin is baffled by all this hostility, since he only came here hoping to speak with their boss. Ma snaps back that someone as worthless as Mujin has no right to meet his boss. Furious, Ma draws his sword and rushes at Mujin, determined to bring him down. Then, in an unexpected turn, Mujin blocks the powerful strike using nothing but a pair of chopsticks. Ma is left stunned by the sight. What Ma does not know is that chopsticks were all Mujin could manage, since he had no money to buy a sword. Mujin and Ma continue trading attacks back and forth. Even so, Mujin holds his ground with impressive skill and control. Before Ma can react, one of the chopsticks has pierced through his hand. Ma cannot understand how Mujin found an opening while he was doing everything he could to cut him down. While Ma struggles, Mujin seems to be enjoying himself. He tells Ma that looking down on chopsticks might end up being something he regrets. Before Ma realizes it, he is being forced back by a pair of simple chopsticks. The sight leaves him shaken, because he had believed Mujin was nothing more than a weakling unable to use ki. Ma wonders how Mujin reached such a frightening level so quickly, yet he refuses to believe this is the same person he once knew. Mujin keeps striking him with the chopsticks in controlled, painful bursts. At the same time, he tells Ma that his skills are truly terrible. Ma refuses to be defeated by what he sees as mere chopsticks, so he launches himself into the air. He aims to end Mujin off with his strongest technique. Even with Ma looking so dangerous above him, Mujin shows no sign of fear at all. He slips past Ma's attack with ease, leaving him completely exposed. Ma is left wondering how Mujin could possess such hidden strength without him ever noticing. Mujin lands a heavy blow to his body, crushing the last bit of pride Ma has left. Fear now spreads through Ma from head to toe. Mujin repeats his point, saying that all he wants is a loan, but this time he says it with an expression so cold that it terrifies Ma. After taking a thorough beating, Ma finally agrees to sit down and speak with Mujin. His guards also end up bowing to Mujin while Ma asks him to explain exactly what he wants to know. Mujin asks why Ma's sect is lending money to his family without collateral, since the entire arrangement clearly feels suspicious. Ma insists there is no bad intention and says Mujin is overthinking it, but Mujin does not believe him because he can sense Ma's fear from where he sits. Mujin asks again, warning Ma to think carefully if he wants to avoid punishment, and Ma realizes he is not joking. Ma finally admits that the order came from the Cheonghua merchant group, which does not surprise Mujin, since he already suspected their involvement. Mujin then asks what kind of agreement they made with the Cheonghua group. Ma hesitates to answer, but Mujin reminds him that dying for the merchant group would not make anyone mourn him. Taking Mujin's words to heart, Ma reveals that the merchant group told them to lend the Huo clan any amount they wanted, but with absurdly high interest. In return for ruining the Huo clan, the Bango sect would receive their lands once the clan was pushed aside, making Mujin realize the land was the true collateral. Mujin asks how much 300 gold coins would become after a year, and Mei explains that, under the contract, the repayment would rise to 5,000 gold coins. Mujin finds the terms disgusting, but since it suits his purpose, he accepts the deal anyway. With a sharper expression, he asks Ma who helps them clean up their dirty work. Ma says one of them is the Sozal sect from the Four Martial Heavens, an alliance of unorthodox sects. Surprising Mujin as Masak explains it is a new alliance. Mujin becomes annoyed at the mention of the Four Martial Heavens, even curses at them. Masak thinks his master's madness is acting up since Mujin has never met the alliance before yet curses them fiercely. But Mujin says not to worry because he has no mood to explain. Mujin grows tired of waiting and asks about the man who went to fetch the money. The man soon returns, carrying a box filled with the 300 gold coins Mujin needs. Mujin's eyes brighten with joy the moment he sees it. He figures that amount should be enough for now. He tells Masok it is time to go, but when Masok questions the loan, Mujin simply tells him to be quiet, grab the money, and leave. Ma and his guards escort Mujin toward the entrance as he prepares to depart. Mujin tells Ma to record the date in his ledger, promising to settle all the clan's debts once he finishes dealing with the Cheonghua merchant group. Mujin also warns Ma not to take money from ordinary people. If Ma ignores that warning, he will face severe consequences. Ma accepts the order, though inside he is furious and eager to watch Mujin fall into trouble. Before long, Masok and Mujin return to the house. The two elders greet them, then grow worried when they notice blood on Mujin's clothes, but he assures them it is not his. They ask what happened at the sect, and he casually says he only went there to borrow money. Mujin explains that the clan needs funds to feed its warriors and stop the few who remain from leaving. The elders struggle to believe the sect lent him the money and suspect he stole it, but Mujin says everything is properly written in the sect's ledger. Mujin then tells the elders that all he needs from them is to care for his siblings and make sure they are well fed and clothed. Once he finishes giving instructions, he simply wishes them luck and walks away. Mujin then heads to the memorial room for his parents, but because he had no parents in his previous life, he does not know what he should say. He finally tells them the money problem is handled and promises to protect his siblings and servants, asking his parents to rest peacefully in the afterlife. He also assures them that he will thoroughly deal with Dobo for daring to challenge him to a duel. Without realizing it, Soyeon and Hua Dojin are watching him, and the children look deeply impressed. Later, Mujin has 3 swords made for him, weighing 50 kilograms, 80 kilograms, and 110 kilograms respectively. The servants who carry the swords nearly hurt themselves from the weight. Even so, Mujin is simply pleased that his swords have finally arrived. Masok cannot help asking what he intends to do with swords that are so absurdly heavy. Mujin smiles and says he will do what anyone does with a sword, which is, of course, swing it. Mujin excitedly reaches for the 50-kilogram sword. He decides to begin his training with that one. However, his smile quickly disappears when he realizes the sword is too heavy for him to lift. He concludes that this body is truly in terrible condition. Still, he refuses to give up and soon realizes that he can raise it slightly if he uses both hands. Mujin notices Masok looking at him with disgust, so he tells him to hurry up and prepare his meal, making sure to add plenty of meat. Masok walks away gloomily, still filled with concern. Mujin sits with the sword, driven by the fact that he only has 2 weeks to train desperately before the duel. His heavenly martial body is completely unsuited to the demonic arts taught by his master. Because of that, he realizes his only option is to learn his master's friend's technique, the peerless 9 swords. Refusing to back down, he begins forcing himself to swing the sword inside the house. Meanwhile, Dobo receives word that Mujin handled the Bango boys so severely that they will be unable to move for 2 weeks. Dobo is startled by this, since Mujin should not have an energy core strong enough to do such a thing. Dobo gives a wicked smile as he starts thinking about preparing something dangerous before the match. He is also eager to discover what Mujin has been hiding once they finally face each other in the duel. Soon after, Mujin begins training his body in the harshest way he can manage. He believes this body, blessed by the heavens, should be capable of being pushed to its absolute limit. While Mujin trains, Masok keeps preparing everything he needs without fail. Mujin believes that once all the preparations are ready, he can finally begin his training properly. He lifts the 50-kilogram sword and starts swinging it through the air. As he does, he recalls the words his former master once told him. After testing the first form, Mujin immediately moves on and begins practicing the second form. He remembers his master saying that no matter what weapon he faces, he must find a way to win. As the training continues, Mujin realizes the strain is already starting to overwhelm him. Even so, he understands that he has no choice but to endure it. Before long, he is able to handle the sword with surprising ease. He even begins leaping around the room as though the heavy blade weighs almost nothing. Soon, he advances to the third form while doing everything he can to control his chi and draw out its greatest strength. To support his training, he has prepared several tools meant to imitate real combat. His first challenge is a hardball, which he manages to dodge for a while, until it finally strikes him from behind. After that, he moves on to face spike bamboo. Using the fourth sword form, he slices through the bamboo in front of him. At first glance, his sword technique may appear simple. However, it is extremely effective, capable of cutting through many different things. No matter how hard he tries, he cannot strike the logs flying toward him with the fourth form. This forces him to progress to the fifth form. This time, he cuts through all of them with the strength of his fifth form. With the power of his sword, he feels certain that nothing can stand in his way. Even greater numbers mean nothing to him. After passing the log trial, he faces candles placed inside bamboo, and for this challenge, he uses the sixth form. His swing is so powerful that it extinguishes every candle at once. Once he clears that stage, he decides the next step is outside the house, where he can use the seventh form. With that powerful move, he succeeds once again. Before long, he reaches the ninth form, fully convinced that there is nothing his sword cannot cut. He finally arrives at the peak of the sword art. and Mujin collapses to the floor in relief. Even so, he feels frustrated because he still cannot recreate the final form from his previous life. He remembers learning from his teacher when he was young, though at first, he never took those lessons very seriously. Back then, he thought his master's friend was simply joking while talking nonsense about impossible feats, like cutting down everything with a sword. His master admitted it sounded absurd, but he refused to let his friend's martial art disappear. Since he could not inherit it properly, he wanted Mujin to do it in his place. His master explained that his late friend was the only swordsman capable of matching his own skill. Even more surprising, the man had no chi. Mujin's master believed he might have used movement arts instead. Since his own sect could not master it, the friend taught Mujin's master, hoping it would reach someone worthy. After hearing all of this, Mujin laughed loudly and mocked the technique. His master then flicked him on the head with such force that it nearly cracked his skull. He ordered Mujin to follow every instruction exactly, leaving Mujin with no choice but to accept his master's wish. His master said that performing the sword art 1,000 times would change his body, while doing it 100,000 times would let his chi flow into the blade. In other words, swinging it 1,000,000 times could make him unbeatable, even against the strongest swordsman. Mujin was stunned, realizing it would take 3 years if he swung 1,000 times daily. When he asked whether the friend truly matched his master said he was unsure, but an all-out fight might have ended with one of them falling. Because of that, Moon became curious about what kind of person his master's friend had been. Mujin finally wakes up after Mesok lands several sharp slaps on him. Mujin realizes he still has a long road ahead, since he fainted after practicing the move only once, far short of 1,000 repetitions. Still, he needs to eat because it is already late, and when he looks at the plate placed before him, he realizes it is pork and his disappointment is obvious. He tells Mesok to bring pork next time as well, since it is the easiest way to help him build up his body. He tells Mesok to use the money borrowed from the Bango sect freely, since he can borrow more later. Mujin plans to keep eating beef until his fight with Dobo. Mesok then asks Mujin when he learned those martial arts, because he is certain that Mujin did not know any martial arts before. Since Mujin has already told his siblings the truth, he decides it would not hurt to tell Mesok as well. Mujin then admits that he is not the real Mujin, revealing that his true identity is the divine demon. Mesok thinks Mujin is only joking and rambling about some ridiculous fantasy. Mesok says his only fear is that Mujin might lose his memories and vanish one day, but Mujin grabs him and assures him he will not leave until the clan becomes the strongest in Sichuan. After all, he has nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. Mesok teases his master for talking nonsense, only to receive a painful flick to the forehead. After their conversation ends, Mujin tells Mesok he may leave. Mesok obeys and steps away as instructed. Meanwhile, the two clan elders are planning to escape with the children before the duel begins. They believe Dobo will defeat Mujin, leaving the clan vulnerable and easy to seize. Not long after, Mujin throws himself completely into training. As a result, he can now lift the 70-kilogram sword with a single arm. Even so, his technique is still far from steady. With only 1 week left before the duel, he stands sweating heavily inside the training room. That is when the children come in to check on him. Mujin tells them to leave because the room is dangerous, but the children explain that they are worried after watching him push himself so hard for several days. Soyeon worries that Mujin is doing all this because of what she said, so she admits she never truly meant it and had only spoken out of anger. As our MC looks at the two children, they suddenly remind him of the siblings of his lover from his former life. Mujin gently pats their heads and tells them there is no need to worry. Two children begin copying Mujin's stance while praising how impressive his posture looks. Watching them argue over who is right and who is wrong makes him recall the harsh days when he trained under his master. Then it suddenly hits him that the key to the Peerless Nine sword lies in its breathing technique. Once he realizes this, Mujin tells the children that he will win no matter what. He then urges them to return to their room. The children remain concerned, but they choose to believe everything will be all right. Once he is alone, Mujin starts using the breathing method while swinging his sword with full force. Through that breathing technique, he manages to release all the internal energy he has gathered in a single burst. Before he even realizes it, he begins to understand the essence of movement arts. This is a type of Kai art that builds internal energy through physical motion. In general, movement arts are treated as low-level martial techniques, so most people look down on them. By applying the breathing technique, Mujin finds it much easier to swing the sword. It even gives him enough power to slice through a statue. Meanwhile, Zhou is seen discussing Mujin's sudden transformation with Mesok. So Kildo tries to explain Mujin's sudden recovery as the result of that single Wudang session he experienced. But Zhou is not foolish enough to accept that easily. He instructs Mesok to report every change he notices to him him without delay. Masok then heads toward the place where his master is training, only to discover that the entire place has been turned upside down. He tries to tell Mujin that his meal is ready, but Mujin complains that the training room is too small for proper practice. Because of that, Mujin declares that he will begin using the main training hall instead. Mujin heads to the spacious training hall, only to find other warriors already practicing there. Every one of them turns their gaze toward him. Masok tells the warriors that Mujin needs to train alone and suggests they all leave the hall. He urges them to move to another training hall, but warriors wonder why a half-dead man is suddenly giving them orders. They believe carrying a sword does not magically make Mujin a true martial artist. Mujin senses the shift in their attitude and openly comments on it. Warriors are about to challenge Mujin, but their squad leader, Boyne, orders his men to clear the hall for the young master. Deep down, Boyne assumes Mujin has lost his senses once again. At that moment, Mujin stops Boyne and tells him to act like a man by speaking directly to his face. Boyne then turns back toward him. Mujin suggests they settle it with a match since both of them are swordsmen. Boyne refuses, saying he cannot do that because Mujin is the clan's future leader. Mujin tells Boyne to remain a coward and stay out of sight, since he clearly cannot stand behind his own words. That is enough to make Boyne draw his sword. He prepares himself to face Mujin. The duel begins. Mujin immediately drives his sword into the ground before springing toward Boyne with a bold and reckless-looking move. He reaches Boyne in an instant and shoves his head before the man can even respond. The warriors are completely puzzled, since none of them has ever witnessed a sword duel fought without a sword. Mujin keeps playing around with Cheolmuk, moving so quickly that Cheolmuk can barely keep up. Boyne soon loses patience and tells Mujin to face him properly instead of constantly slipping away from his attacks. Mujin finally agrees to take the fight a little more seriously and reaches for his sword, but Boyne immediately starts talking, blaming Mujin for everything that has gone wrong within the clan. Since Mujin is the source of their troubles, Cheolmuk believes he has no right to study martial arts. Cheolmuk rushes straight at Mujin. Mujin meets him halfway with the 9th form of his peerless sword technique. The strike ends up disturbing the flow of his internal energy. Mujin refuses to give Boyne even a moment to recover. He follows up with a powerful punch aimed directly at his face. Boyne is knocked to the floor, badly shaken and bleeding. Mujin then makes it clear that things will no longer remain the same. As he falls to the ground, Boyne finally understands the painful truth that Mujin has truly changed. Unlike before, he can now feel a fierce determination radiating from Mujin's entire body. Cheolmuk collapses to the ground, leaving everyone completely stunned. Masok and the other warriors watching the duel are all left in disbelief. The warriors rush over to check on their boss, who lies there completely defeated. Mujin stands tall like the clear victor and asks Boyne whether he has any objections to the result. One warrior shouts at Mujin, accusing him of winning through a dishonorable move. Hyo forces himself to regain his composure and yells at the man to be quiet. He then admits that he truly lost the duel. Boyne shows Mujin respect and tells him that he has learned something from the fight. Mujin accepts his respect and tells him he may leave. As the warriors begin leaving the hall, Mujin also tells Masok to go with them. He says this because he genuinely wants some time alone. The resentful warrior keeps complaining, convinced that Boyne must have gone easy on Mujin. Boyne tells him that is not true, because he had intended to leave Mujin in terrible condition. The man struggles to accept it, but Boyne makes it clear that he is completely serious. Cheolmuk says he does not know the whole story, but one thing is obvious. Their young master has improved by an astonishing degree. Masok, meanwhile, also wonders when Mujin managed to change so drastically. Even so, he cannot help feeling grateful that Mujin has changed at all. That night, the two elders hold a meeting about the duel that is soon to come. Both of them have served the clan for more than 36 years and remained loyal throughout that time. They speak about how extraordinary the Flame Emperor was when he was still young. He was so talented in martial arts that even the mighty Tang clan had no choice but to recognize his uniqueness. In truth, the elders were captivated by his strength, and both of them pledged their loyalty to him. Zhao thinks they are about to abandon that loyalty, but Dubakshin does not agree. He says they simply need to settle the issue surrounding the bloodline. He explains that they have watched over Mujin for 17 years, yet the clan has only continued to decline. They both feel they have done enough, and the Flame Emperor would not blame them when they meet him in the afterlife. In short, they have gathered the money needed to relocate, along with several martial artists who can support them. He then tells Zhou to leave first, while he stays behind a little longer to watch over Mujin. It turns out the martial master from the Kongdong sect, hired by Qianghua, will serve as the witness for the duel. Zhou is shocked to hear this, since everything about it suggests the duel may be rigged. The merchant group is basically a rotten bunch determined to strip the Hua clan of everything it has left. Du tells Zhu to take the children and wait at their agreed location, even though the news will deeply shock them. Later, Mujin notices that his portion of beef has become smaller, so he asks Masok what is going on. Hildo then explains that the steward has been giving him very little money, Although Mujin is clearly annoyed by the situation, he sets it aside for now and decides to show off his impressive new outfit. So Kildo shatters his proud fantasy by saying he looked better when he was covered in bandages. When the time comes to head out for the duel, Mujin runs into Do outside the house. Mujin first assumes Do has come to stop him, but Do says that is not the case. He reveals that he has actually come to accompany Mujin to the duel. Mujin realizes that Do is simply making himself anxious for no reason. After all, his only plan is to crush his rival thoroughly. With that settled, Masok and Do accompany Mujin toward the duel venue. At the arena, the place is already packed with people eager to witness the duel. Many of them have also come there to place their bets. Since the odds on Mujin are unusually high, most people choose to wager their money on him. Before long, he appears at the arena with lollipops in his mouth. Those who see him immediately think he looks weak, and some even want to cancel their bets. When he steps into the arena, he comes face to face with Bukyoyeon. She asks whether he truly intends to continue with the duel. Hearing this, the spectators assume Mujin requested the duel first despite being weak, making them believe his madness is completely out of control. Mujin grows furious when he realizes the group is trying to make them look like villains, and he decides they will pay for it. Mujin boldly tells Bakoyan that he will not sit quietly, while she tries to steal his clan's secret manual, which is exactly why he must fight. The crowd is stunned, since no one expected a merchant group to target a martial arts secret technique. Bakoyan remains completely confident in how things are unfolding, believing Mujin will regret trying to act impressive. The fire has been lit, and every preparation for the duel is now complete. The host announces that Han Yaigong of the Kongdong sect will serve as the duel's official witness. Han stands on the balcony with a composed and powerful presence, ready to honor his master's wishes as witness. He instructs both Dobo and Mujin to fight fairly before the gathered crowd. At that moment, Dobo suddenly makes a surprising announcement. He tells Mujin that the martial outfit he is wearing was personally sent by him to celebrate Mujin's return. Mujin smiles at those words, draws his massive sword, and tells Dobo he will have to return the remaining goods after the duel. The entire crowd is shocked, as none of them has ever seen someone enter a duel with such an enormous sword. On top of that, everyone believed the Flame Emperor was famous for fighting with bare-handed martial arts. Even Du is startled and asks Masok whether Mujin said anything strange beforehand. In truth, the two of them had initially advised Mujin to run, believing he had no chance of beating his opponent. However, Masok is beginning to believe in Mujin, saying he might have a real chance, while Du remains firmly unconvinced. Once both fighters are ready, the referee strikes the bell and starts the match. Filled with anger, Mujin charges straight at Dobo from the very beginning. He swings his enormous sword and launches a heavy, forceful attack. Dobo barely avoids the blow, but the ground it strikes is torn apart. The spectators are stunned, never expecting Mujin to move so quickly or display such tremendous strength. Everyone had assumed Mujin possessed no martial ability, yet his movements were wildly powerful and hard to follow. Even Dobo is completely shaken, since he had expected the duel to be effortless. Mujin continues the assault and rushes toward Dobo once more. He keeps swinging his sword at him, but Dobo manages to block the strike. The two of them end up standing face to face. The clash rings out loudly, creating an impressive sight for everyone watching. But Choyeon is surprised that Mujin is lasting far longer than she expected. Still, she is certain that no matter how much training he has done, he remains far below Dobo. Mujin keeps swinging his massive sword at Dobo, but Dobo avoids each strike with ease thanks to his flexibility. As the battle continues, Dobo finally succeeds in landing a counterattack. The blow forces Mujin backward. Dobo then declares that he will leave Mujin in an even worse state than before. He is certain he has the ability to break another man's spirit. From the balcony, Du admits he is impressed by how well Mujin is holding on. Masok then says that, from what he sees, Mujin has not revealed his trump card yet. Du thinks Masok is talking nonsense, but Masok explains that he secretly watched Mujin train alone and insists that something far stronger is still coming. As the fight goes on, Mujin realizes that his strength is currently equal to Dobo's. This makes him question the way his training has been progressing. Even so, he is not afraid, because no matter how powerful his opponent may be, he is sure he will win. This time he intends to bring Dobo down for good. Meanwhile, Zhou is escorting Mujin's siblings elsewhere. He has already reached the destination while they remain asleep. He recalls Dubakshin saying that the reason he has not come along yet is because he wants to stay behind and collect whatever remains of Mujin after Dobo finishes him. Although Zhu is unsure whether their actions are truly right, they have already begun moving forward. Back at the arena, the two fighters are still clashing fiercely. Mujin feels no fear, believing Dobo is nothing more than a beginner compared to him. The two continue exchanging attacks, and although they seem evenly matched, Some people believe Mujin actually holds the advantage. Others start mocking Mujin, claiming he is not nearly as impressive as people think. At that moment, Dobo unleashes a fierce attack aimed directly at Mujin. Du and Masok nearly collapse as they watch the strike rush toward Mujin, able only to pray that he dodges in time. Realizing Dobo has figured him out, Mujin uses the first form of the Peerless Nine Swords, the preemptive step. Dobo's attack connects, but thanks to Mujin's technique he manages to block it. The crowd is left completely stunned. Even Dobo cannot hide his shock. He is forced to step back. He realizes Mujin is becoming far more dangerous. Dobo gathers his inner energy, preparing to deliver one final strike. However, Mujin mocks him, saying he is taking far too long to gather his energy. Mujin then activates the second form of his technique. He charges toward Dobo with a fierce and threatening presence. Dobo senses it clearly and can only struggle to block Mujin's attack. This leaves him utterly confused, unable to accept that he is being pushed back by Mujin. Dobo pours every bit of strength into defending against Mujin's strike, but before he can react, his sword breaks apart right before his eyes. Mujin's blade continues forward and lands a devastating strike on Dobo. Dobo is sent crashing down to the ground. Choyun screams in anger and despair, calling out Dobo's name. Dobo lies on the ground in a grave condition, with his right arm severed. And with that, Mujin is declared the winner of the duel. Mujin then walks toward Dobo's arm, saying he will take it as payment for 17 years of resentment. Bucheon is stunned when she hears those words. Mujin adds that the merchant group may still find a way to reattach his arm. Hen leaps down from where he was watching to check on Dobo. Bucheon rushes over as well, and Hen says Dobo's energy core has also been destroyed. Hen glares at Mujin and asks if he truly needed to go that far, but Mujin acts puzzled and asks what he means. Han says the difference in their skill was obvious and the fight had ended long ago, but Mujin replies that Han talks too much and clearly has plenty to say. Mujin then asks whether it was necessary to use the 7-wound fist strike on the head of a 5-year-old child with no martial arts ability. With fury burning in his eyes, Mujin says what he did was only the closing of a grudge he had carried for 17 years. Mujin adds that they are about to start paying for everything they did to the Hua clan, warning Han and his men to prepare themselves well. Choyun collapses to her knees in pain. She swears she will never forget what Mujin has done. As Mujin leaves the stage, the spectators cheer his victory, amazed by the way he defeated Dobo. Beyond the impressive display, they realize they have never seen that sword style before, and excitement spreads as they believe a new martial arts master has appeared. Du and Masok hurry over to meet Mujin. He tells them it is time to return home. As he walks away, he suddenly looks back and asks Du whether he has spent all the gold entrusted to him. He nervously answers that there is still a small amount left. Mujin then says he may need to visit the Bango sect because he has to borrow more money. Suddenly he tells Du Baektion that he does not care if he, Zhou, and the other martial artists choose to leave. He warns him that if they try to take his siblings away, the consequences will be severe. He says it with such intense hostility that Du nearly freezes where he stands. Meanwhile, his siblings are yelling at Zhou for taking them away when they were supposed to be watching their brother's duel. Zhou realizes they are in deep trouble after reading the pigeon's message and learning that Mujin unexpectedly won the fight. In the letter, Du says they have been discovered and urges Zhou to return home immediately, so Zhou rides back in fear while the children celebrate and demand to see their brother. Later, Mujin tells Du that it is time for him to deal with the Bango sect. He also tells Du not to worry about anything, even though Mujin is now considered capable. He urges him not to get involved with the Sozal sect in any way. Realizing the old man is simply worrying too much, Mujin assures him that he will not. With that, Mujin heads out to meet the Bango sect, while Masok worries the situation may turn disastrous. Mujin says they cannot delay any longer and tells Seok Hildo to stay close behind him. Soon after, Mujin arrives at the Bango sect. He is shocked since he never expected Mujin to show up again. Mujin tells Ma he has come to repay his debts. He also mocks Ma, pointing out how empty their sect now appears. Tries to hide their losses by saying most gamblers in the area only left to watch Mujin's duel with Dobo, since he says everyone went to watch Mujin's fight. Mujin asks whether they also opened betting pools on his match. Mujin is certain they gave him higher odds, which means they must have earned a large amount of money from the result. Now that they have made a profit, Mujin naturally shows interest, and Ma immediately realizes he is about to squeeze them for it. Hoping to avoid trouble with him, Ma says they plan to show their gratitude properly. Mujin is happy to hear that, since everyone clearly appreciates money. Ma senses a chilling aura around Mujin, showing just how much hostility he is holding back. Mujin then asks about Ma's boss. The question shocks Ma, and he asks why Mujin wants to know where their boss is. Mujin slams his hand on the table and warns Ma that he hates having to repeat a question. Mujin is just about to lose his temper when the sect leader, Chai Wang-jul, enters the room. Mujin is startled to see the unattractive man who turns out to be the sect's leader. Chai Wang-jul says his men have already reported about Mujin. Mujin asks why meeting him is so difficult, then openly mocks his appearance. Behind Chai Wang-jul stands a rather unusual man. Mujin asks whether the man is his servant, while a dark, hostile energy seems to pour from him. The man is revealed as Death Black Crow from the social sect. Black Crow scolds Mujin for eyeing his money, and although Mujin was warned to avoid that sect, he now faces one of them. Mujin calmly tells him to keep quiet if he wants to stay alive. Furious, Black Crow charges at Mujin, ready to take him down. Sight immediately frightens Masok. Mujin feels no real danger from Black Crow and remains determined to remove anyone who blocks his path. Mujin flicks a chopstick toward Black Crow. The force behind it is strong enough to pierce through his hand. At that moment, Black Crow realizes Mujin is no ordinary man and that he needs to treat him seriously. Mujin then says he has no interest in receiving praise from someone as worthless as Black Crow. This only angers Black Crow further, and he rushes at Mujin once again. This time, Mujin chooses to meet him head-on and moves straight toward him. Then he suddenly disappears from Black Crow's sight and reappears behind him, leaving him stunned. Black Crow desperately swings at Mujin, but Mujin avoids every attack with ease. His movements make it clear that he is simply playing with him. Black Crow cannot believe that someone as young as Mujin is able to dodge all his attacks. Mujin then decides to wound Black Crow again, driving the chopstick toward his left eye. The pain is so intense that his scream sends fear through everyone watching. Black Crow drops to his knees and curses Mujin harshly. He warns that the social sect will come after him for attacking one of its members. Mujin says he wants to see what the sect can do, then kicks Black Crow down and tells him to bring them all. Still, before that sect arrives, Mujin tells Black Crow that he will not be leaving this room alive. At that moment, Black Crow begins begging, saying he will give Mujin anything he wants as long as his life is spared. Mujin is surprised that Black Crow still wants to live, but the offer of wealth makes him hold back for now. Black Crow says all his wealth is in Chang, but he promises to retrieve it and bring everything back. Mujin accepts the deal, but warns that Black Crow is finished if he returns without the money. Terrified, Black Crow rushes away, promising to come back quickly. After dealing with Black Crow, Mujin turns toward Chai Wang-jil, who is already trembling in fear. Mujin tells him it is now time to settle their debt. Chai Wang-jil instantly drops to his knees and begs for mercy. He promises to hand over everything he owns. Mujin laughs and tells Chai Wang-jil that he has nothing to give, because all of his property already belongs to him. Chai Wang-jil looks confused, so Mujin tells account the profits taken from commoners and the lives ruined through manipulated martial clans as part of his assets. With tears in his eyes, Chai Wang-jil insists he is willing to surrender everything to Mujin. That only enrages Mujin further, and he ends Chai Wang-jil in a single brutal move. He reminds him that he cannot offer something Mujin already owns. Everyone watching is gripped by fear. Mujin turns to them and asks who comes next in command. Ma quickly steps forward and says he is the vice sect leader. He immediately falls to his knees and pleads for mercy, promising to live honestly if Mujin gives him another chance. Because Ma begs with sincerity, Mujin decides to let him live. Mujin then asks Ma how much Chai Wang-jil was worth, and Ma starts with his house, saying everything totals 4,000 gold. He adds that Bung Ho's assets are worth around 10,000 gold, along with a 500 gold tribute from the social sect. Altogether, the amount comes to more than 20,000 gold. Mujin states that he wants every bit of it brought to him. He promises to prepare everything and deliver it, which satisfies Mujin because he wants the matter handled immediately. After Ma leaves, Mujin looks at the remaining sect officers with a dangerous expression and tells them to start bargaining for their lives. They are shocked, and he reminds them that Ma is the only one he promised to spare. Terror takes over, and they begin begging. A little later, Mujin returns home with several boxes packed with treasure and money, leaving Du completely stunned. He tells Du that each box contains roughly 400 gold. He tries to warn Mujin that the Bango sect has the Sozal sect behind it. Still, the real concern is their ally, a frightening man named Ju Sugang. Du also explains that the sect has both the Black Crow and the Red Crow on its side. As soon as Mujin hears the name Black Crow, he tells Du that he has already taken care of him. This leaves Du completely stunned. Mujin tells Du not to compare him with Ju or anyone else, because anyone who comes to trouble the clan will meet a grim end. Once he finishes speaking, he tells Du Baekshun to bring him some beef and orders him to make sure his siblings are well fed when they return. As Mujin turns to leave, Du can hardly believe that he has already terrified Black Crow, a man feared throughout the region. Du slowly realizes that Mujin is no longer the same person he used to know. Meanwhile, Buchoyeon has hired assassins to destroy everything Mujin holds dear. However, she commands them to bring one of the children back alive. In the past, the Flamehua clan had enjoyed great success. The extraordinary man called the Flame Emperor was admired by countless martial artists who followed his every move. Even the prestigious Tang clan of Sichuan had praised him. Within a single single generation, the Flamehua clan rose into a martial family that no one dared to overlook. Even top martial artists hesitated before challenging the Flamehua clan. Because of this, the people of Zaichang once cheered with excitement whenever clan members appeared in the streets. But after the Flame Emperor passed away, the next patriarch proved to be deeply disappointing. Because of that, the Flamehua clan slowly declined, and those who once served the family began leaving one by one. As time passed, the image of the emperor who once dominated his era became divided between those who remembered him and those who did not. Still, everyone agreed he was extraordinary. Because Mujin carries such an overwhelming presence as he walks, the elders begin comparing him to the late emperor. Not long after, wounded warriors arrive and tell Du that assassins have ambushed them. They report that Zhao and a handful of warriors are the only ones still holding the assassins back. When Du Baixin hears this, he realizes the two children are in danger. He tells the warriors to inform Mujin right away while he rushes ahead on his own. In the forest, Zhao is left facing the assassins alone, since the warriors with him have already fallen. Even under overwhelming danger, he stands firm, fully prepared to protect the children. Just when he is about to be pushed beyond his limit, Du arrives in time to support him, angering the assassins because they had been close to finishing their mission. Before Du arrived, the assassin leader shouts at his men, ordering them to take both opponents down. Another intense fight immediately breaks out. Du manages to trade several blows with the assassins, but his age soon catches up to him, allowing the assassins to gain the advantage. Before he can react, his shoulder is injured. Blow forces him to stagger backward. One assassin then moves to complete the mission and tells his comrades to target one of the children. He drives Du back and forces him onto the defensive, but Du still refuses to give in. Moments later, Du suffers a serious wound and cries out in pain. Du falls to the ground, unable to protect himself or the children. With him out of the way, the assassins turn to the kids and decide which one to spare. Although Huadojin is powerless to help much, he still stands firm in front of his sister. The assassins decide he will be one they remove first, and just as they move toward Huadojin, Mujin's voice rings through the forest, ordering them to stop where they stand. He looks incredibly intimidating as he rushes toward them at astonishing speed. The assassins show no fear, since Mujin had once been known as worthless. The assassin leader orders his men to deal with Mujin, since he has chosen to interfere. One assassin charges at Mujin, but Mujin makes him the first target of his anger. He breaks the man's sword with almost no effort. Then he follows with a vertical strike that defeats the man instantly. Without slowing down, Mujin moves past him and heads straight toward the remaining assassins. Once they witness his terrifying strength, the assassin leader orders his men to gather together and bring Mujin down at once. The group quickly surrounds him, but before they can even reach him, Mujin unleashes the fifth form of the Peerless Nine Swords, known as the Army Slayer technique. With that move, he cuts through them effortlessly. One assassin tries to catch Mujin off guard, but Mujin avoids the attack with ease. Then he finishes the man with a swift strike. At that moment, the surviving assassin finally understands that they are facing a monster. Before he can make another move, his right arm is severed, and he cries out in agony. Mujin then warns him not to move again if he wants to stay alive. Mujin turns and sees Zhu helping Du Baixin back to his feet. Huadojin is covering his sister's eyes so she will not witness the brutal scene before them. Huadojin reassures his sister that they have nothing to fear now, because Mujin has arrived and defeated all the bad people. Mujin walks over to the two children and asks if they are all right. Huadojin says they are fine, and Mujin gently says they must have been terrified. But Huadojin tells him he is not afraid, saying he is the son of a martial master. Mujin feels relieved by those words and gently pats the boy's head, praising his courage. He then orders Zhu to take the injured warriors and his siblings back to the estate. Once the group leaves, Mujin turns to the final assassin and warns him not to speak carelessly about his severed arm. Mujin then asks whether the Cheonghua merchant group was the one that sent him. Man hesitates before replying, so Mujin says he may let him live if he answers honestly. Hearing that, the assassin immediately becomes interested. He quickly reveals that Bukyoyon hired them through the Death Forest faction. After sharing what he knows, he asks Mujin if he will really let him go as promised. Mujin tells him to return to Bukyoyon and report that the group she sent after his siblings been wiped out. He also tells the assassin to warn her that she will be his next target. Later, every eye in the area is fixed on Mujin. He walks through the street with blood staining his body. The people who once looked down on him no longer dare to do so, afraid they might become his next target. Everyone wonders whether the prodigy they knew from his childhood has finally returned. After making sure he has left a strong enough impression in the street, Mujin finally goes back home. Masok immediately runs over to greet him, but Mujin simply simply pushes his head aside. He asks whether all the wounded warriors are in the medicine hall, and Masok says yes, adding that Hua Dojin and Soyeon are resting in their rooms. Mujin is relieved to hear that and tells Masok to prepare a bath for him. A short while later, Mujin relaxes in the warm bath that has been prepared for him. As he soaks in the water, he thinks about his siblings and his wish to keep them from witnessing the darker side of the world, even though they were born into a martial clan. Mujin believes children should not be exposed to cruelty so early. At the same time, however, he worries that he may be forcing his own past fears onto them. The next day at the medicine hall, Mujin approaches Zhao and asks about the red flame art manual. Zhao is startled by the request, and Mujin asks why he reacted that way. Zhao asks why Mujin suddenly wants the manual. Mujin realizes Zhao is afraid he might relapse and cause chaos again, though Zhao quietly claims that is not the reason. Mujin explains that he intends to train by himself since Zhao is currently unable to guide him. Mujin can also tell that Zhao doubts his ability, even though Zhao denies it. Mujin then assures him there is nothing to fear because he has no intention of losing control. Once Zhao understands that Mujin means no harm, he finally hands over the manual. After Mujin leaves, Zhao shares his concern with Du, wondering if giving Mujin the manual was a mistake. But Du tells him not to worry because Mujin has recently shown remarkable swordsmanship. Du says they survived the assassination attempt because of Mujin and adds that he seems to be recovering, likely thanks to the Taoist's treatment. Zhao agrees the treatment appears effective, but he wonders whether it is also improving Mujin's martial arts. Du admits Mujin's sudden growth is worth noting and believes he must have had a fateful encounter, since nothing else explains such rapid progress. Zhao feels pleased with how things are turning out and believes the clan's decline may finally be coming to an end. At the training ground, Mujin gathers his siblings so he can train them. He explains the purpose of the training, telling them they must learn to move with natural fluidity. He says it is a basic movement technique he created from countless real battles, and both children are impressed by this. Soyeon interrupts in surprise, saying Elder Zhu claimed Mujin had no real combat experience, while Hua Dojin cannot believe his sister said it so bluntly. Mujin suggests they skip the boring discussion and tells them both to attack him using the basic fist technique they learned. The two children take their stances, then they rush toward Mujin at the same time. Their movements leave Mujin deeply disappointed. Watching them makes Mujin wonder if they are truly children of a martial clan. He realizes their basic movement is too poor to even be called martial arts. Frustrated by their weak display, he tells them to stop. He says training must end for the day because his head hurts, leaving them confused since they never even touched his head. Mujin then lies, saying they are better than expected and that for now, they only need to strengthen their bodies before learning advanced techniques. After the two of them leave, Mujin realizes he has a difficult task ahead, and it will not be easy. He then understands how much trouble his own master must have endured while training him, yet Mujin is determined to restore the clan, because he blames himself for its fall. Beyond that, Mujin also intends to defeat the one opponent he failed to overcome in his previous life. Mujin picks up his sword and begins training alone. He can clearly feel that the sword has become much lighter in his grip. He also realizes that his speed is steadily improving. Each time he repeats the sword forms, the change becomes more obvious. A few days later, Du and Zhao finally return to their duties. Masok tells Mujin that they have completed everything he ordered. Mujin praises them for handling it well, but Masok seems to expect something more. Mujin angrily reminds them what might have happened if he had arrived even a little later, then warns the elders that they will not survive if they try something like that again. The two accept his warning and bow their heads, apologizing for their foolish actions. A short while later, the Taoist who treated Mujin, Youngsu, finally appears. Mujin has no idea who the man is. He has already insulted the man before Masok explains that this is the Taoist who once treated him. Masok apologizes to the old man, explaining that Mujin has not fully recovered and is behaving strangely because of it. Mujin kicks him aside for saying nonsense about him. Mujin then chooses to play along and apologizes to the old man for failing to recognize him. He invites the man to follow him, saying he must be exhausted after such a long trip. A few days earlier, Masok had told Mujin that the Taoist pre-inherited the Wudang sect's lineage, claiming Mujin recovered through his positive energy healing, and that the chief steward paid a large sum to invite him. Back in the present, Mujin is pleased that he can finally meet the man in person. That is why he personally invites him into the compound. Mujin then asks whether it is true that he inherited the Taoist lineage of the Wudang sect. Youngsu confirms it while acting composed, saying he is the only Taoist who inherited the essence of Wudang's true lineage. The moment Mujin hears that, he stomps his foot and questions him. With a serious expression, he asks if the man is truly literally the Wudang White Immortal, since he has never heard of any living successor to Wudang's Taoist lineage. Youngsu tries to play innocent, but Mujin warns him that he has only a short time to confess before he changes his mind. The Taoist insists he is innocent and asks if Mujin doubts the person who healed him. Mujin immediately draws his massive sword. He tells Youngsu that if he is really a Taoist, dodging one strike should not be a problem. Mujin swings his sword, and the attack barely misses the old man. The blow leaves a huge mark on the floor, causing Masuk and the elders to panic because they think Mujin has lost control again. Mujin tells the three of them to be quiet and bring him water, saying he wants to show them something amusing. Soon as the water is brought over, Mujin drenches Youngsu with it, though Youngsu still pretends he knows nothing. He even asks Mujin whether this is how the clan repays someone for kindness. Mujin ignores him and grabs his long beard, which comes off at once. This completely shocks Masok and the elders. Even Youngsu realizes he is finished now that they have discovered his beard is fake. Mujin mocks him, saying he must have worked hard to glue the beard on so carefully. Before long, Youngsu is forced to answer to Mujin and his retainers. Masok then asks Mujin what he intends to do with the man. Mujin says he has no plan to let Youngsu walk away easily and threatens to leave him in a miserable state. Youngsu panics at once and starts begging Mujin to spare him. Mujin assures him he will not end his life, since that would make it impossible to recover the money. He says he only wants to make sure Youngsu pays dearly. Terrified, Youngsu begs Mujin to leave him unharmed. Youngsu promises to return every coin he swindled. Mujin accepts, but adds an extra charge for sparing him from punishment, and the frightened man agrees to pay anything as long as he remains whole. Mujin then asks how much the man took from them, and Du reveals that he paid him 50 gold nyang. Hearing this, Mujin expresses disappointment at how easily Du Baeksin was fooled by Youngsu's scam. In his defense, Du says he had heard that Youngsu was a skilled healer. Mujin turns back to Youngsu and says the first step is returning the 50 gold. Youngsu agrees, but claims the money is stored at his residence in Jinyang. Without hesitating, Mujin orders him to lead the way to Jinyang, which is 4 hours away. Du and Zhao ask whether they should accompany him, but Mujin says there is no need since they are still recovering. He tells them to stay home and make sure no trouble breaks out. As Mujin leaves with Youngsu, Du notices the concern on Zhou's face. He tells Zhao to trust Mujin in this matter. After all, he is no longer the same man he once was. A little later, they arrive at the place where Youngsu's carriage is waiting. Mujin is immediately taken aback. The luxurious carriage Youngsu rides in clearly shows just how profitable his dishonest business has been. Mujin is even more surprised after stepping inside and seeing how lavishly it is decorated. The interior is padded with cotton and finished with leather, and Youngsu explains that he travels often, so comfort is absolutely necessary. Mujin smirks and says Youngsu has impressive work ethic for a scammer, asking why he refuses honest work despite being so skilled. Youngsu bows and promises to live properly from now on. Mujin then lies down comfortably and tells the old man that he needs to sleep. He tells Youngsu to wake him when they reach their destination, and Youngsu obediently assures him he will do so right away. Deep inside, however, Youngsu harbors dark intentions toward Mujin and eagerly waits to show him the price of crossing him. After he crosses Mujin, the carriage soon sets off, and several hours pass on the road. They eventually arrive at a quiet, isolated part of the forest. Youngsu steps down from the carriage. He goes to meet someone he knows, a man who appears to be a bandit. Youngsu tells the man that Mujin is sleeping inside the carriage, then orders him to drag him out and make him an example. The large man is eager to carry out the order. He cannot understand why anyone would dare interfere with a Taoist's business. The big man climbs into the carriage and swings a punch toward Mujin. Just before the blow lands, Mujin turns and blocks it with his sword. Mujin gives a wicked smile and asks whether they have reached their destination already. Mujin looks displeased at the man standing over him. Then he sends the man flying out of the carriage. Youngsu is left completely shocked. The bandit feels Mujin's strike spreading through his body and decides to get serious, realizing the rumors about Mujin were not exaggerated. Mujin calmly steps out of the carriage and asks Youngsu when their destination became a deserted forest. Mujin finally understands that the Taoist is targeting him too. He thought Youngsu was only a swindler, but now sees there were deeper schemes involved. Mujin is not bothered by it, since he had been hoping for some excitement anyway. Mujin releases a heavy aura and tells the large man he wants to see what he can do. The man immediately feels the pressure coming from him, quickly calls out to the rest of his group, telling them to come out so they can face Mujin together. 3 more large men step out from their hiding spots. It turns out they are known as Zhangchong's 4 demons. As soon as Mujin studies them closely, he notices they are using demonic energy, though he keeps that observation to himself. Mujin comments on the variety of their weapons and says he would like to test how skilled they really are. Without delaying any longer, Mujin charges straight toward the group's leader. He forces the leader away from the rest of his teammates. Mujin keeps pressing him with a steady series of attacks, leaving him stuck on defense. The others soon realize Mujin is focusing only on their leader, so they move in to support him. Even the man under attack can clearly feel the heavy force behind Mujin's strikes. To him, each blow feels as heavy as being struck by a mace. Before long, he loses his balance. Mujin then kicks him in the face, leaving his mouth badly injured. That moment, the rest of the group catches up. The closest one swings his axe at Mujin's head, but Mujin avoids it easily. He then drives a powerful elbow into the man's stomach, making him cry out in pain. The remaining two attempt to overwhelm Mujin with a pincer attack. Mujin slips away, causing both of them to stretch their arms too far. That opening lets Mujin knock one of them to the ground with a clean punch. Mujin then turns his attention to the final opponent. The man tries to block Mujin's attack with his sword, but the blade breaks apart right in front of him. Mujin's sword nearly finishes the man, but he pulls back at the last moment. The man freezes in terror, shaken by how close it was. Mujin then sends him flying with a strong kick to the chest. With that, Mujin brings all four men down. He leaves them kneeling on the ground, struggling to catch their breath. During the fight, Mujin confirms that they truly are using demonic arts. This makes him wonder how demonic arts have appeared in the Central Plains. Mujin sees them as his juniors, so he has no desire to end their lives. While he considers what to do, the group leader shouts that they admit defeat and begs Mujin to spare them. Youngsu then realizes he is in serious trouble because Mujin has defeated Zhang Chong's 4 demons with ease. Leader admits they knew Mujin was far above them after only a few moves. Mujin asks why they kept resisting after realizing that. Mujin tells them he will let them live, but he intends to destroy their energy cores and cut off their meridians. As soon as they hear this, the group leader drops to his knees. He begs Mujin not to ruin their lives as martial artists, saying they were only following orders. Mujin tells him to stop complaining, pointing out that they are already old enough. Mujin demands to know who taught them, but the man first pretends not to understand. Mujin clarifies that he wants to know their master. He says their weak demonic energy is obvious, and he wants to know who taught them those arts. The leader then admits that they do not know their master's name. Mujin is irritated, unable to believe these useless disciples do not know their own master's name. The leader explains that their master never revealed it, and warned them not to seek his other disciples. Mujin says they should have kept their heads down and studied their poor martial arts instead of getting involved in banditry. The leader quickly corrects Mujin, saying they are not thieves and only helped with their brother's business on the side. Mujin is surprised to hear this and scolds them for helping Youngsu despite knowing his business. The team leader then explains that they thought Youngsu was involved in saving lives. Mujin decides to spare them, warning them not to serve Youngsu anymore. He says if he catches them doing wrong again, they will regret it, and the team leader thanks him for his mercy. Mujin then turns to Youngsu and tells him the bill has just gone up. He says Youngsu will also pay for disturbing his peace of mind, leaving him completely terrified. After the carriage departs, the 4 brothers suddenly realize that Mujin is truly worthy of becoming their master. The 4 of them chase after the carriage and force it to stop. Mujin wonders why the carriage has suddenly halted. Then he steps outside and sees the 4 bowing before him while calling him boss. They tell him they are pledging their loyalty and promise to serve him for the rest of their lives, begging Mujin to accept them. Mujin thinks the 4 must be acting strangely because of the beating he gave them, so he tries to send them away. The 4 shout even louder, insisting that he take responsibility for them and revealing that they are still quite young. Mujin is taken aback by this, since their rough faces made him assume they were all much older men. Mujin insists there is no way the 4 can be younger than him, especially since he is only 23. He asks whether they suffered some kind of energy deviation, surprising their leader, who expected Mujin to simply accept that they were young. Mujin also says it makes no sense that demonic arts users became warriors of fallen orthodox households, since the idea sounds completely illogical. Hyolmuk, the eldest at 21, explains that his master always taught him demonic arts were a way of life, not a faction. The youngest, 18-year-old Nosak, watches Mujin closely. Mujin agrees with Hyolmuk's view, but still wonders what kind of orthodox family would accept demonic arts users, since it could easily cause scandal. The second brother, 20-year-old Dong Jiaok, interrupts and says no one would dare say that because they would smash their heads in. The third brother, 19-year-old Zhang Tai, agrees. Mujin then tells them that if they want to serve in a household, they must obey every order he gives. The 4 answer in unison, declaring that they will devote themselves completely. Exhausted by all their shouting, Mujin finally tells the brothers that they are now warriors of the Flamua clan. Soon after, they arrive at Youngsu's large mansion. Youngsu then invites them inside the house. His servants are startled by the unfamiliar faces and ask what happened, but Youngsu simply tells them to prepare food in the annex. Mujin tells him to forget the food, since they need to go straight to the treasure room. Youngsu agrees and begins guiding them there. Meanwhile, the servants nearly lose their composure because of the frightening aura coming from the 4 demons. Mujin is also surprised to see how comfortably Youngsu has been living with all the money he swindled over the years. Just then, they encounter a warrior named B. Sojin, who asks Youngsu whether something is wrong. Youngsu quickly tells him there is no problem and urges him to return inside, but Sojin insists that Youngsu explain what is going on. Mujin cuts in and asks Sojin why he keeps meddling when he has already been told to leave, pointing out that Sojin is clearly only Youngsu's guest. Because of that, he should stay out of the matter, since guests are not meant to interfere in household affairs. Sojin insults Mujin, saying he talks far too boldly. Hyolmuk is ready to step in and handle Sojin, but Youngsu quickly tells him to stop, insisting it is all a misunderstanding. Youngsu orders Sojin to stand down, then introduces Mujin and the 4 brothers his guests. Instead of backing off, Sojin becomes even ruder after learning Mujin is the master of the Manhwa clan. Mujin ignores him and tells him to move aside once he is talking nonsense. As Mujin tries to walk past, Sojin says he should be ashamed for roaming around with demonic arts users and frightening commoners. He adds that Mujin's grandfather would be grieving in his grave. Still not finished, he goes on to call Mujin pathetic and worthless. Even Youngsu yells at Sojin for taking things too far. But Sojin assures Youngsu that he is a professional and would never lose to someone like Mujin. Right then, one of the brothers draws his weapon and steps forward to deal with Sojin. He asks Mujin for permission, but Mujin tells him not to worry because he will handle this himself. Mujin leaps into the open arena, then urges Sojin to come at him. Sojin eagerly accepts the challenge. Sojin rushes toward Mujin, aiming to pierce him with his attack. Mujin blocks the strike with his massive sword. He compliments Sojin's sword style but tells him his power is lacking. Mujin continues to toy with Sojin as the fight goes on. Before long, Sojin begins feeling powerful vibrations shaking through his sword. The 4 demons recognize what is happening and know the man is finished, because Mujin has already forced him into a corner. They say his sword is about to break, and if it does not, then his head certainly will. Just as they predicted, Sojin's sword breaks apart. Mujin then stands before him with a sinister smile. In the next moment, he sends Sojin crashing into the wall. The 4 demons are not surprised at all by the outcome. Mujin tells one of them to throw him the iron club, since Sojin claimed Mujin's grandfather would weep in his grave. Mujin says he will make sure Sojin gets sent to join that grandfather. Mujin then starts striking him relentlessly. His cries are so loud that they shake the entire house. The 4 are amazed by how easily Mujin is handling the man. Youngsu panics when he realizes Sojin may not survive, so he rushes to Mujin and begs him to spare him, promising to pay for his life. Youngsu explains that Sojin has connections to the unorthodox martial heavens, and letting someone like Hai in his house would bring serious trouble. Youngsu promises Mujin that he will pay whatever amount is needed to save Sojin. Mujin smiles at those words, saying he thought Youngsu had placed all his hope in Sojin. Not long after, they enter the treasure room, and Mujin remarks on just how wealthy Youngsu is. Mujin immediately suggests they begin calculating the cost, starting with the 4 demons, whose lives he prices at 500 gold coins each. Youngsu is stunned, since Mujin already agreed to accept the 4 into the clan, yet still demands payment for them. Mujin then says Youngsu's limbs are worth 200 gold, while his life is worth 300. Mujin adds that Sojin's life is worth 1,000 gold because of his rude behavior, and finally charges 3,000 gold for the mental distress Youngsu caused him. Once the calculation is finished, Mujin simply says he wants everything Youngsu owns and asks if he has any objections. Youngsu tearfully says no, realizing that Mujin is even worse than a bandit. Before long, the 4 begin packing every bit of money in the room. Then Mujin notices a folding screen standing in the corner. He senses an unusual aura coming from it. Youngsu also notices Mujin staring at the screen. Youngsu asks whether he likes it, but Mujin replies that he is not completely sure. Youngsu then explains that the folding screen was created by a man named Master Jang Sosun. Mujin's surprise, Youngsu says he may take the screen if he wants, and Mujin accepts without hesitation, leaving Youngsu stunned by his greed. After they finish loading the treasure into Youngsu's carriage, Mujin says he will take the carriage too, since Youngsu will not need it anymore, and Youngsu can only agree. With that settled, Mujin and the 4 demons ride away. As they leave, Mujin tells Youngsu to live an honest and righteous life from now on. Mujin also says they will meet again someday, though Youngsu secretly prays that never happens after losing nearly everything. Youngsu wonders what terrible mistake he made to end up crossing paths with a madman like Mujin. When they finally reach the Hua clan manor, Masak is thrown into a panic. He starts asking where Mujin got all that money, convinced he must have taken it through violence. Mujin assures him that he did not hurt anyone for the money and tells him to store it carefully, since their funds were running low. Mujin then asks Masak whether the 4 demon brothers look old to him. Masak says that from what he can see, they look well over 40, and Mujin smiles, saying he will tell them that Mujin asks where Zhou and Du are, since he has not seen them since returning, and Masok remembers they are hosting important guests in the reception hall. Mujin is surprised to hear they have visitors and assumes another fraud has appeared, but Masok says he is wrong and begs him not to attack the guests. Mujin then heads toward the reception hall. There, the elders happily introduce him to 3 merchant leaders who supported the clan through its hardest times. The first merchant leader introduces himself as Peng Quan, head of the Pyongyang merchant group. The second is Dong Guanyo, leader of the Miryong Merchant Union, and the third is Huang Yuqiong, master of the Golden Finance Manor. The 3 express their happiness that Mujin has recovered, and Mujin politely returns their greetings. After they spend some time exchanging words over tea, Mujin asks whether they have come to collect the clan's debts, which leaves all 3 merchants startled. They explain that they have no wish to pressure him for repayment, and only came to congratulate him after hearing he had awakened, even apologizing if their visit caused discomfort. Mujin thanks them for their loyal support and says their repayment will be handled properly, adding that he only recently regained his senses, and still does not fully know the clan's situation. Because of that, Mujin asks for the total debt owed to their groups. Zhou is surprised, but Mujin ignores him and says they need exact numbers before discussing repayment. The 3 merchants agree to reveal the approximate amounts. The clan owes the Pyongyang Merchant Group 5,300 gold, the Golden Finance Manor 200 gold, and the Miryong Merchant Union 100 gold. After hearing the figures, Mujin calculates the total as 10,400 gold. At that moment, the merchant leaders decide to mention something that has been troubling them. They reveal that the Cheonghua Merchant Group has been putting pressure on them. This immediately catches Mujin by surprise. The 3 explain that Cheonghua has used its overwhelming financial power to target them because they kept pressing the Hua clan about its debts. In fact, Cheonghua has monopolized their trade goods and cut ties with every merchant group that once worked with them. They even went as far as luring away their branch managers. The 3 are forced to admit that they no longer have the strength to endure the pressure. It turns out they are being pushed to hand over the debt rights, which is why they had no choice but to speak up. Mujin replies that he is grateful for everything they have done until now. After all, they were the only ones who stayed with the clan while it was collapsing. Mujin tells them he understands that gratitude must be repaid properly. He then assures them that he will repay every coin owed to them immediately. The 3 merchants are stunned by his words. Mujin adds that, in return for their interest and support, the clan will free their groups from the Cheonghua Merchant Group's control. This leaves the 3 merchants shocked all over again. They ask Mujin whether he plans to use force on their behalf. Mujin confirms it plainly, saying that is exactly what he intends. Du speaks up nervously, warning Mujin that the Cheonghua group has the frightening Kongdong sect supporting it. The Kongdong sect is known as one of the strongest forces in the entire Murim. The 3 notice that Du Baixin is panicking, so they quickly urge him to settle down. They say recovering the debt is already enough, because they do not want the Hua clan to come into conflict with the Kongdong sect. They assure Du that they can finally feel relieved, and while they are saying this, Mujin remains completely silent. Once the meeting comes to an end, the 3 of them take their leave. They wish the clan even greater success in the days ahead. Mujin then orders Du to gather information on the Cheonghua group at once, including its finances, operating areas, trade goods, and connection to the Kongdong sect. Du panics after hearing this and realizes Mujin may truly mean it. Mujin is surprised. Du thought he was joking and reminds him that grudges and favors must be settled clearly. Mujin says the Cheonghua group will keep troubling them if they are allowed to continue operating freely. He adds that if they cannot protect merchant groups when it matters, those groups will never support them again. For that reason, Mujin is ready to help them, even if it is only this once. Still, he knows the 3 will probably dismiss his words as the reckless boasting of a madman. Just then, Cheolmuk arrives and reports that they finished the task Mujin assigned. Pleased, Mujin tells everyone to gather and greet the clan elder and chief steward. Du and Zhu nearly faint when they realize they are looking at the 4 demon brothers. The 4 respectfully greet the elders and ask them to look after them. However, the 2 elders are too stunned to answer. Mujin tells them not to be shocked yet, because something even more surprising is coming. He says the 4 are actually younger than him, and the elders nearly lose their composure. Even Mesok, standing behind them, can hardly believe what he has just heard. Meanwhile, the brothers cannot understand why the elders are so startled by them. The elders then ask Mujin why he brought the 4 demon brothers in without speaking to them first. Mujin turns the question back on them, asking whether they consulted him before trying to sneak his siblings out of the mansion. Mujin says he has the authority to decide whether the 4 brothers stay or leave, reminding them that he is the future clan patriarch. Mujin then tells Masok to go buy a cow. Du is shocked and reminds him they have no money left after paying over 10,000 gold to the merchant groups. Mujin says nothing in response. Instead, Instead, he simply leads them to the treasure room, where they are nearly overwhelmed by what they see. Mujin explains that he took everything from Youngsu. Still, he assures them that he did not kill the man, who then asks Mujin about the folding screen. Mujin says Youngsu claimed it was one of Jang Sosun's works, and Du almost collapses from shock after hearing that. Mujin adds that the screen should sell for at least 90 gold, which is exactly why he took it. Since they now have money, Mujin tells Masuk to stop talking and go buy the meat. Meanwhile, Mujin senses that there may be something strange about the folding screen. The next morning, Mujin summons his siblings, the 4 demon brothers, and the clan instructors. Mujin tells them he has decided that all of them need special training. He explains that the foundation of swordsmanship is the body that controls the sword. No matter how powerful a martial art may be, it becomes useless if the body using it is weak. Because of that, Mujin announces that everyone will begin special training. He will personally supervise the entire process. He points to the rice sacks at their feet and says each one weighs 144 kilograms, making them their loyal training partners. Mujin adds that the rice is not meant for eating. If he catches anyone eating it, they will be in serious trouble. Meanwhile, Hudojin and Soyeon notice that their own sacks weigh only about 15 kilograms at most. Cheolmukboin asks Mujin what they are supposed to do with the sacks. Mujin tells them to lift the sacks onto their shoulders. Boin is shocked, and another warrior complains that even 2 men would struggle to lift such a heavy sack. Mujin's expression darkens, and he shouts that they should pick up the sacks or be punished by him instead. He warns that his sword may not cut cleanly, but one strike from it can still break their bones. He tells them they can either carry the sacks or spar with him. Frightened by Mujin's threat, the warriors immediately lift the sacks. However, Mujin orders the 4 demon brothers to carry 3 sacks each. If they refuse, he says they are welcome to spar with him instead. The thought of sparring with Mujin terrifies them enough to move at once. The 4 immediately hoist up 3 sacks each, their eyes nearly bulging from the strain. The elders panic at the sight, wondering what exactly Mujin is trying to do. Mujin keeps pushing them forward, telling them they can lift the sacks as long as their minds do not give in. He says nothing is impossible, because failure will only lead them straight toward disaster. Once everyone, including his siblings, has lifted their sacks, he orders them to begin sitting and standing. He tells them they will repeat the movement 200 times. Mujin moves first, shouting the command as he orders the others to follow his lead. The group cries out while struggling to hold the proper stance. Even so, Mujin continues to drive them on. He tells them to tighten their stomachs and push upward, warning that failure will bring serious consequences. Cheolmuk feels as though his whole body is about to collapse beneath him. Still, he knows he is finished if he cannot endure it, because Mujin would simply make him regret giving up. The elders begin wondering what kind of training method Mujin has forced the warriors to follow. Just watching it is enough to wear them out. While they continue rising and lowering themselves, Mujin scolds them, saying they have only been wasting the clan's food while pretending to be martial artists. He tells them they have no right to complain if they cannot endure even this much. By the time dusk falls, they finally reach 200 repetitions. One of them collapses the instant the final count is made. Mujin is unimpressed, saying they wasted an entire day on what was only a warm-up. He tells them their stamina is disgraceful, and that they are not worthy of being called martial artists. He then declares that from that moment on, they will become inseparable from their rice sacks. He orders them to train with the sacks, eat with them, and even sleep beside them. He says the sack will remain their partner until he says otherwise. Mujin then orders Zhang Tai to tie each person to their sack. He warns that anyone who unties their sack will face severe consequences as well. Zhang Tai is so exhausted that he starts wishing he could see his mother's face. As Mujin heads back to his room, he tells Masuk that from now on, everyone must receive beef with every meal. Masuk asks if he should prepare bath water, but Mujin says he will tell him when he is ready. The moment Mujin drops onto his bed, he falls asleep immediately. That night, the whole group gathers in the dining hall. Each of them arrives with a sack tied firmly to their back. They even keep the sack strapped on while eating. One warrior turns to his superior and says his hands are trembling, even though they had only trained their legs. His senior tells him he is not the only one feeling that way. Apparently, this never happened when they trained under their previous master. That only makes the situation feel even stranger. Next day, the harsh training continues without mercy. This time, they are ordered to do push-ups. Mujin performs the exercise with them while carefully checking everyone's posture. Boyne can hardly believe all the warriors are actually doing the push-ups despite how exhausting they are. The day after that, they move the training outside and crouch through the village with sacks on their backs. Villagers watch in alarm as the group struggles along. They can barely understand what exactly they are witnessing. The training continues again the following day. Repeatedly lift and lower the sacks. Even Mujin begins to feel the strain, but he is impressed that his siblings are keeping up better than he expected. He even wonders whether he should increase the difficulty. So the next day, he leads the group to a river with a fierce current. The warriors are stunned by the sight, and while they are still questioning why they came there, Mujin tells them their goal is to cross the river while carrying the sacks. The current alone frightens the warriors, and making matters worse, the waterfall waits at the end of the river, making the challenge even more dangerous. While the others panic, Soyeon seems excited to take part in the brutal training. Then she suddenly remembers that Hua-dojin cannot swim and suggests they tell Mujin about it. At the same time, the elders warn Mujin that crossing the river may be impossible because of the speed of the current. They add that people have lost their lives there, even without heavy sacks on their backs. Mujin smiles at the worried elders and says everything was tested before they came. The elders are confused since they have no idea when he could have tested the river crossing. Mujin ignores their confusion and tells the warriors to cross the river, unless they would rather face him. Once the warriors understand the choice before them, they begin jumping in after Mujin. Even Cheolmuk tells his comrades it is better to fight the current than to deal with Mujin. Before long, every one of them has already thrown themselves into the river. Even Hua-dojin is forced to jump in, despite not knowing how to swim. Hua-dojin is determined to prove that he, too, is a warrior of the Flamua clan. That desire is what drives him to leap into the water. However, the river current is far too powerful. Hua-dojin struggles badly to keep himself moving with it. In the next moment, his grip slips away. He begins sinking toward the bottom of the river. The elders notice what is happening and shout toward Mujin. They warn him that Hua-dojin is being carried away by the water. Unexpectedly, Boin rushes after Hua-dojin. He reaches him just in time and manages to grab hold of him. Boin tells him to take a deep breath and cling tightly to him, because they are about to head straight toward the waterfall. At this point, there is no longer enough time to stop. With that, the two are swept directly over the waterfall. The elders cry out in terror as they watch. Moments later, Hua-dojin and Boin appear farther away. Boin praises Hua-dojin and tells him he handled it well. Hua-dojin thanks him sincerely for saving his life. Mujin arrives and asks Hua-dojin whether he is alright, and if he hit anything. Hua-dojin assures Mujin that he is fine, saying Boin appeared at the perfect moment to save him. Boin, however, is shocked that Mujin arrived right afterward, wondering how long he had been following them. Mujin tells Hua-dojin not to overdo it, because it would be terrible if something happened to him. Hua-dojin tells his brother that he wants to see this through, since he cannot remain a child forever. With firm determination, Hua-dojin says he can only become a true Flamua martial artist if he stays strong. The next day, the warriors must climb a steep cliff while carrying sacks on their backs. Once they reach the halfway point, Mujin tells them to crawl upward quickly, warning that a fall from that height would be fatal. One warrior with brown hair decides Mujin must be insane and thinks he should have stayed behind, but all of a sudden his footing slips. He begins to fall. Somehow he manages to grab onto another warrior. He pleads with the man to help him. The other warrior urges him to grab the rock in front of him. After that, the warriors rush back to the manor because Mujin warns that anyone who falls behind will have to carry him. A child watching the scene asks his mother if the warriors are condemned prisoners. His mother tells him they are actually warriors of the Flamua clan. Suddenly, Soyeon collapses to the ground. Zhou immediately runs over to check on her. He looks completely drained and asks Zhou to carry her. Elder Zhou quickly lifts her up, but as they pass the others, everyone realizes Soyeon was only pretending to be exhausted. Mujin notices that some of them are displeased by this. He tells them they are welcome to collapse like a little girl too, since they seem so eager to compare themselves with her. However, he warns that anyone who does so might as well be signing away his own life. When they finally return to the manor, everyone drops to the ground, completely worn out. Just then, the warrior who helped the brown-haired man walks up to him. He scolds him for constantly falling behind during training. He yells at him, asking how long he plans to act weak, and tells him to stop dragging others down if he cannot keep up. The brown-haired man says he is only enduring this because Mujin threatened them. Apparently, he has wanted to quit being a warrior for quite some time. However, he is afraid that Mujin might punish him harshly if he admits he wants to leave. The warrior shouts that his fear of Mujin is exactly why he keeps falling behind in training. He threatens the brown-haired man, saying he is not suited to be a warrior. Boin steps in and tells the larger warrior that not everyone can be like him. The man responds rudely and strikes Boin in a painful spot. He says he will simply start by taking Boin down first. Cheolmuk intervenes and tells the warrior to back off, saying Boin is right. He explains that Brownhead is doing his best in his own way, and is also their brother now that he has joined the clan. The larger man argues that they will never grow stronger if they keep acting so weak. Cheolmuk replies that Mujin trained years ahead of them, so everyone should be allowed to progress at a different pace. Cheolmuk tells the man he can only say such cruel things after he has managed to surpass him. Giant Man storms off in anger, warning the brown-haired guy that he will make him pay if he ever causes him pain again. Later that night, the Giant Man is leaving the restroom when he hears someone somewhere in the distance. He quietly moves closer and finds Mujin training alone with his sword in the middle of the night. The man is stunned by how quickly Mujin moves. That moment he realizes Mujin is far beyond his level. Even though the two of them are not that different in age. Suddenly Moon senses that someone is watching him. He tells the hidden person to come out before he goes over and finds him himself. With no other choice, the man steps out from hiding, and Moojin asks what he is doing there. The man explains that he was returning from the restroom and happened to come across Moojin's training. He insists he was not trying to watch on purpose. Moojin says he was already getting bored with training alone, then tells him to put down the rice sack and grab a sword. The man is shocked by the order, but he still follows Moojin's instruction. Moojin then tells him to charge straight at him. The man immediately rushes toward Moojin with remarkable speed. Even so, Moojin blocks the strike with ease, keeping one hand calmly behind his back. The man keeps pressing forward with another attack. Then, all at once, he realizes he has become quicker than before. Moojin notices it as well and admits that the man has clearly improved. Still, he thinks the man has not fully sharpened his focus yet. Moojin succeeds in slipping around behind him. He lands a powerful slap on the man's back. The impact sends him crashing down to the ground. Surprisingly, the man rises back to his feet almost at once. Moojin remarks that he once fell from a single blow, but now his strength finally seems usable. The man himself understands that something inside him has changed, since before, a hit like that would have left him unable to move. Moojin praises him briefly, then tells him to go and rest. The next day, Moojin announces to the warriors that they will be training their abdominal strength. He orders everyone to lift the rice sack between their legs and hold it there. First group follows his instructions exactly. Meanwhile, the others watch in stunned admiration. Once that exercise is finished, they set off running through the village again. The brown-haired man is close to collapsing when the giant approaches. Unexpectedly, the huge man walks over to his side, tells him to hold on, saying they are almost at the finish. Moojin sees this and smiles, realizing that his lessons are beginning to take effect. 1 month later, Moojin gathers the warriors and announces that their special training has ended. He says they may untee the ropes and put down the sacks, just as they are about to celebrate. Moojin then informs them that this training will continue every year during both summer and winter. He explains that the next session will come in winter, only a few months from now. Still, he assures them it should feel easier, because they have already endured it once. In short, Moojin tells them that this round of training has reached its end. However, he reminds them that a powerful body becomes the foundation of a powerful sword. And he says it is now time for him to begin. He will personally spar with them to deepen their practical experience. He tells them to step forward whenever their names are called, and just as expected, every one of them is thoroughly overwhelmed. Yet through that pain, they gain experience, and from experience comes real change. Because of this, the 4 demon brothers are officially accepted into the clan as instructors. In this way, the clan slowly starts to recover its former greatness. It was once known as a shining symbol in Seeking. Later, Du watches Huadojin spar with one of the instructors and is surprised to see him holding his ground. The elders are pleased to see that Huadojin has also regained his cheerful expression. They are relieved that the 4 demon brothers have settled in, all thanks to Moojin regaining clarity and stabilizing the clan. Du says things are going so smoothly that it actually makes him uneasy. Apparently, Moojin has shut himself inside the storage room for several days, leaving everyone wondering when he will finally come out. What they do not know is that Moojin is locked in a mental struggle with the folding screen. Moojin realizes that the more forcefully he releases his inner energy, the screen pushes back with an even stronger opposing force. Even so, he grows excited, curious to see whether he or the folding screen will yield first. Several days later, the folding screen finally exhausts the last of its stored energy. This gives Moojin the opening he needs to force his way through. Moojin then steps up to the mirror and presses a hidden button. A bottle containing a greenish liquid is released from the device. The bottle gives off a foul smell, and Moojin realizes the person who built the mechanism was truly odd. He finally understands why he sensed strange, poisonous energy leaking out. Suddenly, a book drops out from inside the folding screen. Moojin reaches down and picks it up. To his surprise, it is a manual for the mind-severing sword art, the very thing hidden within the screen. Moojin immediately sits down to study it, but in the end, he feels disappointed. He concludes that the contents are only comparable to one of Hubei's 10 great martial masters. Although disappointed, he does not consider the time entirely wasted. He notices that the owner used the cultivation method differently from him, who relies on movement arts. Moojin realizes this technique suits the Flamehua clan far better. In other words, he has been unable to teach the warriors swordsmanship because his fundamental cultivation method differs from theirs. Apparently, the Peerless 9 swords are founded on the movement arts, while the Flamehua clan relies on yang energy martial arts, and the two energies naturally conflict. This means carelessly combining them could cause energy deviation. That is the main reason the Peerless 9 swords should only be taught to a complete beginner with no previous sect background. Moojin realizes he was simply fortunate that the body he reincarnated into already had its energy core destroyed, leaving it in a flawless state of emptiness. Because of that, he could develop movement arts smoothly. Mujin smiles at the book in his hand, knowing it is about to become the sword art of the Flamua clan. A short while later, Mujin brings the book to the elders and tells them to look through it. The elders panic once they understand what they are holding. They tell Mujin it is the original text of the mind-severing sword art, lost over 10 years ago, and can hardly believe it was hidden in the folding screen. Mujin says Youngsu most likely has no idea it was hidden there. Du then asks Mujin whether he truly intends to teach this martial art to the warriors, and Mujin reminds him the clan lacks proper swordsmanship, so this discovery is simply good fortune. Mujin says he will begin teaching the warriors the next day, though he doubts the instructors will be ready. He then leaves to sleep, allowing the elders to copy it if they wish to learn too. As soon as they hear that, they celebrate like fish finally return to water. The warriors also rejoice as if they had won a fortune after hearing about the martial art. Since the clan had never possessed a signature art before, this high-level technique bound them together even more strongly. As expected, Huadojin and Soyeon eagerly joined in as well. However, the four demon brothers remained focused on their own martial arts, already training fiercely in their own way. Mujin believes that even without the mind-severing arts, they can still rise high in martial arts. Before anyone realized it, another month had gone by. Mujin walks into the yard and is surprised to see it completely empty. Mujin then asks Masok where everyone has gone. Masok explains that the sparring competition, the Little Dragon Ascension tournament, is currently taking place. Mujin looks confused, so Masok assumes he forgot. He explains that it is Sitang's biggest event, held once every 5 years, and the winner apparently earns qualification for the Orthodox Muram tournament. The instant Mujin hears that, he rushes straight into town without even asking Masok where the tournament is being held. Mujin complains that Masok should have told him about something this important. He feels wrong that the old men tried to enjoy such a good show without him. Meanwhile, Zhou and the children have reached the tournament venue. They are in the middle of registering their names when an arrogant man appears. The man turns out to be Jiang Sayun, chief steward of the Baek clan, who has come with Seiyan, the clan's representative. Jiang is clearly surprised to see Zhou and the Flamhua clan at the tournament. Zhao ignores the man's rudeness and greets him politely. However, Jiang continues speaking down to the Flamhua clan. He sneers that he is shocked they could even afford the entry fee, then asks Zhao whether his clan will still have anything to eat after paying for the tournament. He also asks whether they have finally paid the membership fees they have owed for 10 years. Zhang Tai ridicules Zhou for bringing the children, saying they look half-starved. By then, Huadojin and Soyeon are also beginning to lose their temper. Meanwhile, Mujin has gotten lost somewhere in town. He regrets not asking Masok exactly where the event was being held. He looks ahead and decides the tournament must be taking place wherever the crowd has gathered. At the same moment, two unusual people appear nearby. An old man and his granddaughter are walking through town, while the young woman quietly takes in the town's beauty. Mujin suddenly rushes past her, urging her to move aside. He then stops in front of them and asks where the event is being held. Growing frustrated, Mujin turns to the young woman and asks whether she knows the venue. She only looks at him with disdain, prompting him to ask why she is staring at him like that. Her grandfather steps in and tells Mujin they are also searching for the venue, since they are not locals either. The old man then asks Mujin to tell them if he manages to find it first, but Mujin hurries away, telling them to find it on their own since they have legs too. Mujin sprints off like a madman, and the young woman asks her grandfather what is wrong with him, saying she has never seen anyone so rude. The old man remarks that madness seems to have completely overtaken Mujin. The moment he says this, the young woman realizes her grandfather is talking about Mujin, the grandson of Huajutai. The old man is pleased that he came in person, sensing that something interesting is about to happen. At the venue entrance, the tension between Zhou and Shangtai has grown even sharper. Zhou tells Shangtai that the membership fees they owe will be repaid soon. Instead of stepping back, Shangtai keeps mocking him, asking which year he intends to settle the debt. He even goes on to insult them in their secret arts. Having heard enough of his insults, Zhou reaches for his sword. He warns him not to speak such nonsense in front of the children, because even his patience has a limit. Shangtai then draws his own sword and dares Zhao to do the same. Just before the two men can clash, Mujin appears and tells them to step back, saying this is the children's day, and it would be shameful for adults to ruin it. In a stern voice, with a frightening expression, Mujin says this day belongs to the children, who are the future hope of Xichang. Mujin walks past Zhang Tai, and just as expected, Zhang Tai begins insulting him as well. Mujin ignores him and goes to his siblings, asking why they never told him such an important event was happening. While Huadojin stammers, Soyeon steps forward and explains that they wanted to win so they could surprise him. Mujin pats Soyeon on the head, pleased with her way of thinking. But Chai still cannot keep quiet. He mocks the clan for being poor, but Mujin tells him that a clan's true foundation is martial arts, not how much money it has. Just then, the old man from earlier arrives and praises Mujin for speaking so well. The old man then looks toward Zhang Tai and suggests they sheath their swords, since today is supposed to be a special occasion. But Zhang Tai snaps back, telling him to stay out of Manhwa clan matters. Zheng goes on to say that being poor is hardly something a martial arts clan should be proud of. He tells Mujin that before bringing his siblings to cheer, he should have bought them proper clothes. Then he cuts even deeper, saying they probably spent everything just paying the entry fee. Du loses his temper once more, but the old man quickly steps in. He says clothing means little, because fine attire cannot turn a weak martial artist into an expert. Irritated by his constant interruptions, Zhang Tai tells the old man to stop meddling. In the end, Zhang Tai backs down, saying there is no point speaking with beggars. Still, he adds that he wants to see whether the clan's so-called training will show results in the ring. The old man catches the anger written across Mujin's face. He advises Mujin not to let Zhang Tai's words affect him, since people like that exist everywhere. Mujin accepts the advice and answers with a smile. Meanwhile, Zhou keeps staring closely at the old man. He feels certain the man's face is familiar, yet he cannot remember where he has seen him before. At that moment, a servant arrives to inform Mujin and his clan. Seats have already been arranged for them. Mujin then walks into the arena. He is immediately surprised by how carefully the tables have been laid out with food. Children are amazed by the feast before them, but Mujin warns them not to eat too much, since they still have no idea when the sparring matches will begin. To everyone's surprise, the Baek clan is guided toward the VIP seats. Zhang Tai then turns back and flashes Mujin a cold, mocking smile. Mujin starts wondering when he will finally get the chance to teach Jai a lesson. In his mind, he is already imagining a harsh payback, beginning with a painfully humiliating blow. Just then, the old man appears again and asks if he may sit beside Mujin. Mujin wonders why the old man keeps trailing after him, but he simply says the man can do whatever he likes. As the children prepare to eat, Mujin speaks to them through a frequency whispering technique. He orders them to put the food down and touch nothing until he has tasted it first. The old man's granddaughter, He, arrives carrying a bottle of alcohol. She then fills his cup with a drink. Seeing Mujin neither eating nor drinking, the old man asks what is wrong. Mujin calmly says he already ate not long ago. A short while later, the host, Seokhildo, walks to the center of the arena and welcomes everyone to the event. As it turns out, he is the head of the Shiok clan. He assures the guests that food has been prepared for all of them. Then, without warning, Seokhildo spots the old man sitting among the crowd. He immediately rushes over in a panic. Seokhildo lowers his head and respectfully greets the old man. Surprised that he is recognized, the old man listens as Seokhildo says he could never fail to know the honored face of Tang, the Poison Emperor. The moment everyone hears the old man's true identity, the entire place erupts in shock. After all, his status is extraordinary. In the Central Plains, only 4 people have ever held the title of Emperor: the Wu Dudang Sexword Emperor, the Shaolin Temple Fist Emperor, the 4 Martial Heavens Whip Emperor, and the Tang Clan Poison Emperor. No one can believe that one of the Central Plains' strongest figures has appeared at a small children's sparring event in Seichang. When Zhang Tai hears this, panic washes over him, since he had insulted the old man without realizing who he was. While everyone else is losing their composure, Mujin stays perfectly calm because he already knows this man from his previous life. Mujin recalls that when the 10-year war against the Orthodox sect began, 4 of the great clans, excluding the Namgung clan, avoided the battle against the divine demon. They stayed out because there's no proper reason to enter the war. On top of that, the clan leaders and their main forces had already suffered severely at the divine demon's hands. One of the men present that day was Tang Suman of the Tang clan, who would later be known as the Poison Emperor. Seokhildo asks Tang to accompany him to the VIP area, but Tang tells him he is perfectly comfortable where he is. Seokhildo is stunned by the refusal and quickly tries to please him. He tells Mujin that he may move to better seats as well. Mujin, however, turns down the offer and says they should simply begin the sparring event. Meanwhile, Tang keeps watching Mujin, unable to look away, because the longer he studies him, the more he sees the likeness of his old friend, Mujin's grandfather, the man who once supported him during a time of deep despair. Seokhildo then tells Mujin the event will begin shortly and asks whether he has any interest in taking part. Mujin is puzzled and asks what Seokhildo means. Seokhildo explains that he is referring to the Orthodox Murim tournament, held once every 5 years, and since it is approaching, he wants to know if Mujin is interested. Mujin plainly answers that the tournament does not serve his interests, so he has no reason to enter. Suddenly, Zhang Tai hurries over to Tang, offering his greetings while also apologizing for his earlier behavior. He explains that he failed to recognize Tang. Even so, Tang pays him no attention and continues drinking as if he heard nothing. Fed up with all the noise, Tang orders his granddaughter to send the troublesome youngsters away. He stands up and tells the group to return return to their seats, since her grandfather dislikes unnecessary commotion. Hildo then informs the old man that the match will begin immediately. Before it starts, he explains the rules to everyone. He states that only non-lethal wooden weapons, such as wooden swords or spears, may be used. Fatal techniques are forbidden. A blue pouch from an official means the match is paused, while a red pouch ends it completely. After finishing the rule explanation, he announces the first participants of the day, Baek Seyeon and Soyeon. Soyeon is still busy chewing on a large piece of meat when she hears her name called. Moojin then tells her it is time to see just how much progress she has made. Seyeon, meanwhile, is certain that he will defeat Soyeon without any trouble. Soyeon steps into the ring as well, telling Seyeon he is about to become the stepping stone for her glorious rise. Seyeon is taken aback by how rudely Soyeon speaks to him, but Soyeon tells him to shut his mouth and stop spouting nonsense. This enrages Seyeon, and he warns Soyeon that he will break her limbs for insulting him. Using a whispering technique, Moojin asks Shou whether they had always been on bad terms with Jang Tai and his people. Shou explains that it was not a serious problem, while the Flame Emperor was alive, but after the previous clan head held the succession ceremony, several vassals left and took refuge with the Baek clan. Apparently Jang Tai belongs to that group, and the more the Hua clan declined, the more hostile they became. Moojin then asks why they turned into such a nuisance. Zhou reveals that they once had a serious conflict with the previous clan head because of opposing views. On top of that, the Baek clan kept growing by accepting more people who had left the Hua clan. Back in the arena, Seyeon rushes straight towards Soyeon, but she avoids his attack with ease. She then drives a kick into his chest. Before Seyeon can recover, Soyeon has already sprung into the air. She brings her knee down into Seyeon's face, injuring his nose. Seyeon cries out in pain while Soyeon stands over him. She mocks him when she sees blood running from his nose. Aang is surprised to see Soyeon using kicking techniques and asks Moojin if he was the one who taught her. Moojin says it was actually Elder Zhou who trained Soyeon in those techniques. Ai adds that Soyeon's physical ability is impressive too, but she wants to see how long Soyeon can last against an opponent with a sword. At the same time, Seyeon is boiling with rage. He screams at Soyeon, threatening to end her. Seyeon charges towards Soyeon while swinging his sword wildly. Thanks to her remarkable agility, Soyeon continues slipping away from every strike. Ai is impressed by how Soyeon dodges everything through movement art. By this point, Seyeon grows frustrated and calls Soyeon a slippery toad. Before Soyeon realizes it, she is driven into a corner by him. Seyeon leaves her with no room left to dodge. Du and Zhou panic, believing this may be the end for Soyeon. Jang Tai, however, celebrates because he thinks Seyeon finally has the chance to finish the match. Seyeon charges at Soyeon with everything he has. To everyone's astonishment, Soyeon vaults over Seyeon with an acrobatic leap. Seyeon turns around furiously, saying Soyeon has done nothing but run around. However, Soyeon tells him he has just fallen into her trap. Seyeon is confused by her words. Soyeon tells him she finally has the chance to punish him properly, because now he is the one trapped against the wall. She raises her leg with fierce determination. She dares Seyeon to block the attack with that dead piece of wood he calls a sword. Before Seyeon can even react, Soyeon lands a powerful kick to his head, sending him down in pain. The sudden shift in the match impresses the elders, and they begin cheering for Soyeon. Meanwhile, Jang Tai groans in frustration. Seyeon tries to fight back, but Soyeon is far too much for him, and she keeps knocking him around with relentless kicks. Before Seyeon can regain control, Soyeon sends him flying and even breaks his wooden sword. Jung fears the worst and shouts for the referee to throw in the blue pouch. By then, Soyeon is already standing over Seyeon, ready to end it, but the referee steps in and saves him. Instead of staying quiet, Seyeon starts running his mouth again. He talks about coming to the Hua clan later and wiping them all out. That is when Soyeon snaps, telling Seyeon she has no intention of stopping, now that she has shattered his sword. Seyeon tries to remind her that the blue pouch has already been thrown, meaning the match is suspended. Soyeon says that has nothing to do with her. Soyeon walks up to him and says he is free to come to the clan later with any warriors he wants. But for now, she says he is finished. Seyeon still does not understand what is happening until Soyeon comes down on him. He knocks him hard to the ground. Tang watches the scene in horror. Meanwhile, Moon jumps up in celebration, shouting that this is exactly how it should be done. Jang Tai stands up and questions the referee, asking why Soyeon kept going even after the blue pouch had already been thrown in. In the end, Soyeon is disqualified for striking Seyeon after the match had already been halted. The elders look disappointed, but Moojin bursts into wild laughter. As Soyeon heads back to her seat, she sticks out her tongue at Jang to tease him. When Soyeon returns, the elders immediately ask why she continued fighting after the pouch had been thrown. Soyeon says she knew perfectly well, but she enjoyed taking Seyeon down more than winning the match. Mujin laughs loudly and fully agrees with his sister's way of thinking. Mujin goes even further, breaking into a ridiculous dance like a turkey. He acts as though his sister has already won the entire tournament. Meanwhile, Zhang Tai burns with anger as he watches Mujin hop around and mock him. Mujin is so delighted that he tells Tang they should drink as much as they want, though he makes it clear that Tang will be paying. Tang then asks Soyeon why she did not use the clan's secret art, since it would have made victory easy. Soyeon answers that someone like Saeon was not worth using secret arts on, since she was already overwhelming him without them. She also worries he might find a counter if she used them carelessly. Tang bursts into laughter after hearing that, clearly agreeing with Soyeon's judgment. Tang then calls for more liquor, and their drinking session carries on. Everyone in the arena becomes fixated on Mujin casually sharing drinks with the Poison Emperor. Although many matches are still taking place, the crowd keeps staring at Mujin and Tang. Even Seok-Hildo is beginning to feel annoyed by the entire situation. Soon after, Hua Dojin's match against Seok-Hildo's representative Chuyong is called. Hua Dojin leaves the table, and Mujin encourages his brother, telling him to show them what he can do. Tang looks surprised when he notices. He sees Hua Dojin enter the arena carrying a sword instead of relying on hand-to-hand techniques. The referee signals the start of the match. Seok-Hildo feels certain his prodigy will become the tournament champion, hoping this will be enough to catch Tang's attention. However, Chuyong's very first move becomes his final one. Hua Dojin avoids him with ease and lands a decisive strike to his head. The spectators are stunned by what they just witnessed. That is because none of them can fully understand what happened. Meanwhile, the Hua clan side celebrates Hua Dojin's victory. Even Tang is impressed by the swordsmanship he has just seen, since he never knew the Hua clan possessed such a technique. Mujin explains that his brother's swordsmanship is not just efficient swordplay, but a technique built on the principles of advanced martial arts. Crowd grows confused after hearing this, and Mujin suddenly rises from his seat. He reveals the martial arts manual for the mind-severing sword art to everyone present. The secret manual releases such overwhelming energy that the crowd can barely look at it. Mujin then makes a daring announcement, saying anyone who wants to learn the art is welcome to join his clan. He promises that everything written in the book can guide them toward extraordinary progress in martial arts. As expected, the crowd erupts with excitement, with many people shouting that they want to join. Mujin tells anyone interested to speak with Elder Du, who instantly pulls out his pen and orders everyone to form a line. Tang laughs heartily, saying Mujin truly deserves his reputation as a madman for daring to recruit members in the middle of a tournament. At the same time, Seok-Hildo finally reaches the end of his patience and wishes Tang were not present. Zhang Tai approaches him and asks whether he will really just watch Mujin and the Hua clan do whatever they want. Seok-Hildo replies that Tang is watching, so there is nothing they can openly do. Zhang Tai then says he has a plan. His plan is to alter the bracket so they can bring in Seok-Yoso. Since the Hua clan's influence has weakened in recent years, the Shuk clan and the Baek clan have been plotting to fill that gap with their own power. One method is the Dragon Ascension Tournament, held every 5 years. They have been manipulating the brackets so their apprentices can win and enter the Orthodox Muram tournament to raise their faction's reputation. As their influence grew from this scheme, they chose to monopolize the Little Dragon Ascension Tournament and keep expanding their reach. When the final match of the tournament's top 32 round finally arrives, the referee introduces Seok-Yoso as the contestant facing Ban Yeol from the Half Moon sect. Apparently, the winner of this match will face Hua Dojin in the next round. Suddenly, Zhao realizes that Seok-Yoso should not be taking part in the tournament. Zhao says Seok-Yoso was the previous tournament champion, and there had been news that he entered the Diankong sect for training. Even his opponent Ban is startled when he sees Seok-Yoso, and asks why he is participating, pointing out that the tournament only allows contestants aged 14 or younger. Seok-Yoso confidently answers that he knows the rule and claims he is still 14 years old. Ban argues that this is a lie, saying Seok-Yoso is already 15. Before Ban can finish speaking, Seok-Yoso moves in and attacks. Seok-Yoso knocks Ban down with ease, securing victory in the match. Seok-Yoso proudly explains that his birthday has not passed yet. Zhao becomes furious when he sees this and wants to step in. Mujin tells him to let it go, saying Seok-Yoso is the best opponent they could hope for. Soon after, Hua Dojin enters the ring to face Seok-Yoso. Tang senses the shift in the air and realizes this already feels like an early finals match. Although Hua Dojin appears to be at a disadvantage, the elders and his sister cheer him on, insisting he can win. Mujin, however, keeps a serious expression as he studies the situation. Seok-Yoso then tells Hua Dojin that the sword technique he used was what eliminated his brother. Hua Dojin asks whether he is trying to settle a grudge, but Seok-Yoso tells Hua Dojin to stop talking nonsense. Seok-Yoso says he intends to make sure Hua Dojin never uses a sword again. Without any delay, Seok-Yoso rushes at Hua Dojin with the 12 Radiant Sword Strike. This forces Hua Dojin to focus entirely entirely on defense. Even so, Seok keeps driving forward. He continues making things difficult for Huadojin. Tang studies the match and quickly understands that Huadojin will struggle badly against Seok. Meanwhile, Seok is pleased to see Seok putting Huadojin under pressure. After all, he wants to show the emperor that their side is superior. Seok swings his sword fiercely at Huadojin and mocks him for losing his footing. At that moment, he also catches Huadojin off guard. He strikes Huadojin's hand with his sword exactly as he had been waiting to do. The blow sends sharp pain through Huadojin. He falls to the ground, struggling from the pain. Seok moves in as if to end the match. Bujin throws the blue pouch into the ring to stop the fight. Seok smiles, convinced that victory is already his. Mujin calls Huadojin out of the arena so he can examine his hand. He quickly realizes that Seok deliberately aimed for the joints. Mujin helps adjust Huadojin's hand back into place. Huadojin cries out in pain throughout the process. When he finishes, Mujin says the bones are set, but using a sword may still be difficult. He asks what Huadojin will do, and Huadojin tells his brother to tie his hand to the wooden sword. Mujin is impressed when he hears that answer. He then goes ahead and does exactly what Huadojin asked. Once it is done, Huadojin steps back into the arena with even stronger resolve. Tang praises Huadojin's courage, while Mujin says this is only natural for someone from a respected martial arts clan. Seok returns to the ring. He is surprised that Huadojin did not actually run away. Seok then tells Huadojin that he will do to him what was once done to Mujin when he was young. Huadojin is forced to ask Seok what he just said. Seok leaps toward Huadojin, saying he will turn Huadojin and his brother into Xichang's next pair of ruined siblings. Huadojin keeps himself calm. He remembers his earlier talk with Mujin, who had asked if he truly wanted to win. Huadojin had answered firmly that he wanted victory, and wished to restore the clan's honor. Mujin told him not to worry too much, and promised that he would make their clan the greatest in Xichang. He then explained that the best path to victory was to focus on the duel and wait until Seok used a sword technique. Once he does, a small opening will appear at the center. At that moment, Huadojin must strike without the slightest hesitation. Huadojin follows his brother's instructions. The instant Seok charges in with his sword technique, Huadojin drives straight toward his center. Before Seok can reach him, Huadojin lands the first strike. Seok is left completely stunned. That single blow forces him backward. Seok, the clan head, watches in alarm as his plan to crush Huadojin falls apart. Meanwhile, Mujin looks rather satisfied with the outcome. Huadojin himself can hardly believe he managed to land a hit on that arrogant brat. Seok back hits the ground. Elder Zhou, Stuart Du, and Soyeon burst into excited cheers for Huadojin. However, Seok quickly gets back up. Furious, he starts throwing insults at Huadojin and threatens him harshly after standing again. Huadojin worries that his strike may have been a little too weak. Seok then threatens to finish him off, but before he can complete the sentence, a red pouch smacks him in the face. Enraged, Seok demands to know who threw the pouch. Mujin casually replies that he was the one who did it. Mujin praises Huadojin, saying he handled himself well. Then he withdraws from the match on Huadojin's behalf. Seok is taken aback by this, and immediately questions his choice. Mujin replies that he has no intention of risking his brother's life over a minor tournament. After that, he motions for his family to leave so Huadojin's injured hand can be treated at once. As they prepare to go, Poison Emperor Tang asks to visit Mujin's home for a drink. Just as his granddaughter He tries to stop him from entering a stranger's house, Mujin casually accepts and allows them to come along. As the group leaves the tournament grounds, everyone is stunned that Mujin has forfeited. They grow even more uneasy when they see the Poison Emperor departing with him. Seok mutters bitterly, furious that his chance for revenge has slipped away. Seok grows even more enraged as he watches them leave after disgracing him. Meanwhile, on the streets of Xuchang, people stare as two troublemakers march in with Death Black Crow, the man Mujin once defeated at the Bangho sect. Mujin had ordered him to bring all his possessions. Instead, Black Crow has returned seeking payback. He comes with Yohang from the Sozal sect who vows to make Mujin pay. Yohang reassures Black Crow that there is nothing to fear, since they have brought someone from the Crimson Sword sect. With that support, he believes no one in Xichang can stop them. Shigang, the man from the Crimson Sword sect, supports Yohang's words, making him even more confident. Before long, they reach the entrance of the Hua clan estate. Feeling smug, Yohang kicks the massive estate gate apart with a single strike. Mesog panics the moment he sees what happened. He asks them why they destroyed the gate. Yohang is furious that someone he sees as a mere servant would dare question him. His threatening glare nearly makes Mesog collapse on the spot. Just outside the estate, the four demon brothers appear. Now serving as martial instructors for the Hua clan, they are cheerfully returning home after eating their fill. They stop in confusion when they notice the estate gate has been knocked down. Cheolmuk first guesses the wood may have rotted, but his eyes widen in shock. He steps inside and sees Mesog pinned beneath Yohang's foot. Yohang continues running his mouth with arrogant pride. Even after the four brothers arrive, the intruders show no sign of fear. Jungtai wonders what is going on, while Chiol-muk says it certainly does not look like a willing bowing ceremony. Yohang bursts out laughing, convinced that Mujin must have gathered a group of oversized fools. Dongjiok loses his temper at this and angrily challenges them to fight. At the same time, Black Crow struggles to remember why the four brothers seem so familiar. Before he can place them, the four brothers rush forward like hunters closing in. A short while later, Mujin and the others return to the estate. They are shocked to find Yohang and his group thoroughly defeated. Chiol-muk quickly tells Mujin what happened, explaining that the intruders had attacked Masok. At that moment, Masok runs toward Mujin in tears. As always, Mujin keeps him at a distance while asking who the intruders are. Then he spots Black Crow among them and remembers that he was supposed to bring all his assets as compensation. Realizing how badly he has messed up, Black Crow begs Mujin for forgiveness. Mujin pays him no attention and instead turns to Shugang, asking whether he came to help Black Crow take revenge. Rather than answer, Shugang proudly introduces himself with an awful nickname. But Mujin only cares whether he has enough money to buy his way out. When Tang hears that Shugang belongs to the Crimson Sword sect, he asks whether it is connected to the four martial heavens. Shugang nearly freezes in terror when he realizes Tang is the infamous Poison Emperor. Tang is furious that the Crimson Sword sect would dare enter Sichuan territory to pressure an orthodox clan. To him, such an act could be treated as a declaration of war. Overcome with rage, he releases an overwhelming and fearsome killing aura. The crushing pressure nearly overwhelms everyone present. Elder Zhou quickly protects Huadojin and Soyeon from Tang's terrifying aura. The force is so intense that the ground begins to shake violently. Meanwhile, Shugang trembles as he wonders why Tang is supporting the Hua clan. In simple terms, Tang is one of the most powerful figures in the current martial arts world. Shugang knows that offending him could bring ruin upon their entire sect. He immediately bows in a frantic panic. Pressing his head to the ground, he desperately apologizes to Tang. Shugang's sudden change in attitude leaves Yohang and Black Crow completely stunned. Tang, still furious, warns that he will show them the power of the Tang clan. He even threatens to erase their lineage once he is finished with them. Shugang keeps pleading for mercy, but before Tang can act, Mujin stomps his foot. His hostile pressure is dispersed. He is left speechless, wondering how Mujin could neutralize her grandfather's overwhelming killing intent so easily. Even Tang himself seems slightly taken aback by what happened. Mujin then warns him not to overstep, reminding him that he is not the one in charge of the Hua clan. Hearing that, Tang bursts into laughter and apologizes for crossing the line. Mujin then orders Zhu to take Masok and the children to the clinic. Zhou immediately follows the order, though Soyeon and Huadojin are clearly disappointed that they cannot stay and watch the excitement. Once Mujin confirms that they have gone, he prepares to punish Shugang for hurting Masok and damaging their supposedly precious oak gate. Mujin presses a small wooden piece into Sugang's shoulder and asks whether he understands how valuable that gate was. Mujin then drives the stick in deeper. He explains that the gate was made from an ancient oak tree and carried his grandfather's spirit. As Mujin keeps pressuring him, Shugang quickly admits that he was not the person who wrecked the gate. Mujin does not care, since Shugang still helped cause the situation. He then demands 10,000 gold as compensation. Shugang protests the outrageous demand. Dongjiok and Chiol-muk are stunned that he dares raise his voice at Mujin. To prove he is serious, Mujin twists the stick again, and Shugang immediately agrees to pay. Once Shugang gives in, Mujin pulls the stick out. He then turns his attention to Yohang, the one who ruined his precious gate. Yohang apologizes in a panic and Mujin orders him to pay 20,000. Yohang accepts without the slightest hesitation. After that, Mujin shifts his gaze toward Black Crow. Black Crow pleads for mercy and promises he will obey every order. However, Mujin deals with him immediately. He has no intention of offering him another chance. Mujin then orders Shugang and Yohang to sell off Black Crow's assets and bring the proceeds to him the next day. Several days later, the Hua clan estate becomes lively as steward Du Bakshin supervises the repair work. With money now overflowing, they replace the gate with expensive oiled oak and renew every worn-out part of the estate. Mujin is quite satisfied with the estate's refreshed appearance. More martial artists also sign up for the clan's warrior test, since Mujin promised to teach advanced martial arts while providing a stipend. For Mujin, everything seems to be progressing smoothly. The only problem is that Tang and his granddaughter have started visiting the estate regularly. Mujin cannot understand why they have turned his home into their private tea house. Finally fed up, he asks Tang about it directly. The old man only laughs casually and makes jokes, which irritates Mujin even more. Tang says he likes the Hua estate because it feels lively and full of movement. That makes drinking tea there far more enjoyable. Growing more serious, Tang asks Mujin whether his way of using energy comes from movement arts. After pausing for a moment, Mujin answers that it does. Tang then asks for his understanding. Before Mujin can grasp what he means, Tang suddenly launches an attack. Mujin succeeds in blocking the blow, yet Tang immediately continues pressing the attack. Meanwhile, Kia tries to stop her grandfather. Steward Du and Zhao stare in complete shock. They cannot understand why the two of them have suddenly started fighting. Tang soon releases his poisonous explosive punch. Mujin counters with key destruction drawn from the third form of the Peerless Nine Swords and disperses the attack. When the dust clears, he realizes the strike was never poisonous to begin with. At the same time, Tang confirms his suspicion that Mujin's swordsmanship truly belongs to the Peerless Nine Swords. Mujin is surprised that Tang recognizes the technique. Tang says he could never forget it after seeing it even once. He apologizes for attacking Mujin and explains that he only wanted to confirm the technique. Then he invites Mujin to sit and talk. Mujin, however, finds the old man's behavior completely absurd. After having Kia pour him another cup of tea, Tang says he is astonished to witness the Peerless Nine Swords again. He asks Mujin how he learned the technique, but Mujin refuses to answer until Tang explains how he recognized it first. Tang says he first saw that sword art many years ago. It happened while he was fishing with his grandfather and brother. At that time, poison martial arts were widely respected, and Tang's grandfather had already earned a famous reputation. He was called the Heavenly Poison Emperor, and although he had retired by then, he had been known as a true master in his prime. On that day, while they were heading out, a swordmaster suddenly appeared and challenged Tang's grandfather. Tang and his brother quickly hurried away to hide, while the two masters engaged in a fierce clash. The Heavenly Poison Emperor unleashed the poisonous, explosive punch. Meanwhile, the swordmaster answered with the Peerless Nine Swords technique, Chi Destruction. Tang was deeply amazed, which was why he could never erase that sword technique from his memory, even though he had been hoping his grandfather would win. Watching the swordmaster easily defeat the so-called strongest emperor left a lasting impression on Tang. After the clash ended, the swordmaster quietly left, and Tang could only watch because he was still too young. From that day onward, however, the name Peerless Nine Swords stayed firmly in his mind. After finishing the story, Tang asks Mujin if that was the swordmaster's name. Mujin says it was not, explaining that it was only the name of the sword technique. Tang then asks whether Mujin is that swordmaster's disciple. Mujin explains that although he inherited the technique, the Peerless Nine Swords swordmaster is not officially his teacher. Tang finds the relationship between them rather confusing. Mujin tells him he cannot reveal certain details, but later he intends to find a proper heir and legitimately pass on the sword technique. After that, Tang apologizes once more for attacking him. Mujin then asks whether he knows anything about swordless marks. His eyes widen the moment he hears this. However, Tang claims he has never heard of it before. Mujin chooses not to press him further and prepares to leave, but Tang stops him and reveals that he has been visiting the Hua estate often. He says he came to learn what Mujin thinks of his granddaughter, leaving he shocked by the question. Mujin pretends not to understand, and Tang teases him for being sly before asking how he feels about taking he as his wife. Steward Du, Baeksin, and Zhou are thrilled when they hear this. At the same time, the four brothers begin celebrating ahead of time. Mujin, however, is left completely unable to speak. Meanwhile, Hai, who had been protesting only moments earlier, blushes as she waits for his answer. Tang asks Mujin again, and Mujin struggles to find a reply. Memories of Manhwa from his previous life suddenly fill his thoughts. He then tells Tang that he has no intention of marrying anyone in this life. He's eyes widen when she hears those words, but Mujin does not stop there. He adds that he is not exactly his type, which immediately infuriates her. She snaps back at once, saying she has no interest in him either. Tang studies Mujin for a moment and asks if he prefers men, which makes Mujin furious that he would even think that. Tang explains that no straight man should be able to turn down a granddaughter as exceptional as his. Mujin says everyone has their own preference and asks Tang to respect his choice, but this only makes Tang even angrier. Tang keeps trying to understand what could possibly be wrong with Mujin. After Mujin leaves, Hai scolds her grandfather for embarrassing her and tells him to drop it. Tang reminds her that she was waiting for Mujin's answer too, but she denies it. She declares that she never wants anything to do with an arrogant brat like Mujin again. Since he insists she is not interested, Tang decides to bring his younger granddaughter instead, claiming she is gentler and has a better attitude. He tells he that Mujin is a rare catch, and he has no intention of letting him slip away. Annoyed, he tells Tang to stay with Mujin himself, then storms off angrily. Later, Mujin makes his way to the clan's training ground. There, he meets more than 200 new martial artists hoping to join their clan. A short while later, Mujin introduces himself to the group. He tells them he does not care why they came, but if they stay, they must train to become strong and loyal. He explains that the clan's warrior selection test will be the harshest trial they have ever faced, while also saying they may quit at any time. However, he promises that anyone who endures until the end will be properly rewarded. Mujin then presents the martial instructors assigned to them. They are the four demon brothers, who will take charge of their training. Afterward, he wishes them luck and says he hopes they are still breathing when they meet again. Once Mujin leaves, Cheol Muk introduces himself as their senior instructor. He then orders each recruit to carry a sack of rice on their back. The recruits immediately fall into an uproar, questioning the order and voicing complaints. Chiolmuk tells them the only way to avoid training is to defeat him and the other instructors in a duel. He adds that anyone who wins will automatically receive an instructor position. After hearing that, several recruits immediately decide to quit, but Dong Jiok blocks their path. They remind him Mujin said they could leave freely, but Dong Jiok explains that the only exit is through injury. He then fixes them with a chilling stare and asks whether they will continue or leave in far worse condition. Terrified, the new recruits finally realize they lost their choice the moment they stepped inside. With no better option, they follow the order while the instructor continues throwing out warnings in case anyone still thinks of resisting. Meanwhile, Mujin observes everything from a distance. He appears satisfied with the outcome. A few moments later, injured man staggers into Hua clan's estate. He calls out for help and asks to see Mujin, but before he can make it through the gate, he collapses only a few feet away. Masuk notices him. He tries to wake the man, but soon realizes he is a deputy from one of the merchant groups. Later that night, Mujin examines the injured man, and Steward Du tells him the man is no longer in danger. The injured man is apparently from a merchant group and brings news that the Cheonghua merchant group has been terrorizing other merchants. Some who resisted were even beaten down severely. Mujin tells Du that they should move their plan forward and settle their grudge with the Cheonghua group. He orders Du to have Dong Jiok handle the warrior test, while the other brothers prepare to leave with him. Unknown to them, Soyeon and Hua Dojin overhear everything. Soyeon becomes extremely excited and decides to follow them in secret. Hua Dojin, however, has no desire to go, but after Soyeon gives him a little push, he agrees to come along. A short while later, Mujin, Cheolmuk, Nosak, and Jungtae set out on their mission. Meanwhile, Soyeon and Hua Dojin trail after them in secret. Mujin and his group move rapidly, using their swift movement arts. Soyeon and Hua Dojin struggle hard to keep up with their pace. Suddenly, the group stops in a clearing and realizes they have been surrounded. At the same time, Soyeon and Hua Dojin hide behind a rock. They watch everything unfold from a distance. As more assassins step out from the shadows, Mujin and his men understand that they have walked into an ambush. A fierce battle immediately breaks out. Before long, the assassins realize they are no match for someone like Mujin. At the same time, Soyeon and Hua Dojin are left completely speechless. This is especially true for Soyeon, who is witnessing real combat for the first time. Even from a distance, she trembles as the heavy scent of blood reaches her. After dealing with the assassins, Mujin questions one of them and promises to spare him if he reveals who hired them. Cheolmuk pressures the man harshly to make him more willing to talk. The assassin finally reveals that they belong to the Death Forest faction and were hired by the Cheonghua merchant group. Mujin grows furious after hearing this, since they are the same group once hired to target his siblings. The assassin begs Mujin to let him go and Mujin agrees, leaving Cheolmuk puzzled. Even the assassin is shocked that Mujin is sparing him after personally defeating so many of his men. Mujin orders him to deliver a warning to his faction, saying he will bring down as many of them as dare to come. After receiving the message, the assassin quickly runs off before Mujin can change his mind. As he escapes, he even passes close to Soyeon and Hua Dojin. Fortunately, he fails to notice them. Two siblings are just about to return home, but Cheolmuk senses their movement and swiftly catches them. After being firmly scolded, they apologize to Mujin for sneaking out. Mujin reprimands them for taking such a dangerous risk, especially because things could have gone badly if an enemy had found them first. He then shows them the fallen assassins to teach them a lesson. He wants them to understand that death can come for anyone without warning. Mujin's harsh lesson plants real fear in Soyeon and Hua Dojin's young hearts. He warns them again that one wrong step can decide life or death, because danger is always nearby in the martial world. Hearing those words leaves Soyeon and Hua Dojin deeply terrified. Mujin then warns them never to act so recklessly again. They decide to camp outside for the night and return to the clan the next day. Little later, Soyeon and Hua Dojin watch with horrified eyes. Demon brothers burn the assassin's remains. The sounds and smell leave a deep mark on their minds. It becomes a memory they will never be able to forget. Early the next morning, Mujin leaves his siblings in Zhang Tai's care while he continues onward with the other two. He is worried the clan may be in chaos once they realize Soyeon and Hua Dojin are missing. Mujin says goodbye to them. After they leave, he tells the others to hurry, saying they lost time because of the children. Just as Mujin expected, the entire Hua clan is in panic over Soyeon and Hua Dojin's disappearance. Masok is even more confused since he had confirmed they were in bed the night before. Meanwhile, Zhang Tai questions the two siblings and remarks that Soyeon must have been the mastermind behind their late-night adventure. Soyeon confirms what he suspected and Zhang Tai lets out a chuckle, already knowing she is the one leading the twins. Just as Hua Dojin is about to explain how she dragged him into it, a desperate cry for help suddenly rings out through the forest. They turn toward the noise and see a sleazy man bothering a nun. Lecher takes pleasure in watching her struggle while bragging that he has already knocked out her companion. Nun keeps crying out for someone to help her. Zhang Tai tells the children to stay where they are while he goes to check the situation. However, the moment he sees the frightening man, he immediately changes his mind. Feeling the danger, he tells Soyeon and Hua Dojin to rush home, knowing they could be hurt if he tries to face the lecture. The man soon notices them, and Zhang Tai pretends not to know anything, saying they were only passing through. Luckily, the man pays them no real attention. He simply turns back to continue bothering the nun. Unfortunately, Hua Dojin suddenly decides to act like a hero. He steps in to save the woman and angrily calls the man shameless trash. At that instant, both Zhang Tai and Soyeon realize they are in serious trouble. After Hua Dojin provokes him, the lecherous man leaves the nun alone and shifts his focus to Hua Dojin. He threatens to crush him, but Zhang Tai quickly moves in and tries to strike first. The man avoids the attack with ease, leaving Zhang Tai confused. After that brief exchange, the man realizes Zhang Tai lied earlier and is actually a martial artist. Zhang Tai, meanwhile, struggles to get back on his feet after the clash and realizes the lecher is a powerful martial master. He quickly tells Hua Dojin to grab Soyeon and run when he gives the signal. Zhang Tai warns him not to stop or look back and to use whatever movement arts he has learned to flee as fast as possible. After giving those instructions, Zhang Tai tells Hua Dojin to go while he charges forward again to buy them time. As Zhang Tai struggles through the fight, the unhinged man seems to enjoy every moment of it. A short while later, he completely overpowers Zhang Tai. He takes clear pleasure in watching him suffer. Zhang Tai realizes the man's swordsmanship is truly impressive. It may even surpass Mujin's level. Even with the obvious difference in skill, he still puts everything he has into the fight. Meanwhile, Hua Dojin, who should be escaping, refuses to abandon Zhang Tai. Just as the crazed man is about to deliver the final strike, Zhang Tai sees his life flash before his eyes, yet his only fear is that Soyeon and Hua Dojin will be targeted next if he falls. Thankfully, Mujin appears at the very last moment. He blocks the strike and saves Zhang Tai's life. The crazed man is shocked and visibly annoyed that his amusement has been interrupted. At the same time, Soyeon and Hua Dojin light up as Mujin arrives to rescue them. Mujin does not waste a second and immediately enters the battle. Zhang Tai watches everything from a distance. However, worry quickly rises in him when Mujin starts being pushed back. Meanwhile, the crazed man grows excited after finding an opponent worth fighting. He raises his intensity and releases his chain moon slash. Mujin, however, has a hard time defending against the attacks. As the battle becomes even more heated, Mujin's men begin fearing that he might be losing ground. Chomuk, in particular, is stunned by the man's movements and wonders whether some divine weapon is supporting him. Concerned for Mujin's safety, he orders his brothers to get ready to assist with everything they have. But Zhang Tai stops them before they can act, warning that this fight is far beyond their ability. He says they would only interfere with Mujin if they jumped in. Instead, he tells them to watch Mujin's movements and realize that he has a plan. In truth, Mujin has been fighting defensively on purpose. He is carefully avoiding every strike so he can rid his opponent's technique. At the same time, the nun who had been harassed regains her composure and observes the fight from afar. While the crazed man attacks recklessly like someone out of control, Mujin calmly studies his sword spear. He also tracks the movement behind each strike. He pays close attention to the force carried by every blow as well. Then, in that exact moment, everything finally comes together. By now, the crazed man has realized that Mujin has been skillfully slipping past all of his attacks. After fully reading his opponent's technique, Mujin decides to apply it to his own sword form, just as his master once taught him. Mujin's master once taught him that the Peerless Nine Swords reveals its true strength only when it collides with a powerful sword. At the time, Mujin asked whether the Peerless Nine Swords was stronger than his master's demonic spirit sword art. His master answered that the demonic sword art was only slightly superior. After remembering what his master had said, Mujin grins wildly and tells the madman that he has now understood every one of his sword strikes. The madman is left confused. Mujin gives him no chance to process it and finally launches a counterattack. The move leaves the man completely stunned. Mujin swiftly turns the battle around and overwhelms him almost instantly. Then he ends the fight with a single decisive strike. Soyeon, Hua Dojin, and the demon brothers can only stare in stunned silence. Mujin has brought down the arrogant expert who seemed so powerful moments ago. Even the man himself cannot believe he lost to someone so young. Even so, he tries to learn Mujin's name before meeting his end. Mujin decides to grant him that much. After hearing the name, the man realizes Mujin is the so-called mad dog of the Hua clan. With that, the madman draws his final breath while still speaking Mujin's name. At the same time, Mujin curses him to find no peace even after death and tells him to choose his opponents better in his next life. Meanwhile, the other nun, who had been unconscious, wakes up and wonders what happened. She also hears Mujin say his name and finds it strangely familiar. After thinking hard, she finally remembers that he is the reckless young master of the Hua clan, though she struggles to accept that he is this strong. Mujin then checks on his siblings to make sure they are unharmed. Hua Dojin assures him they are fine because Zhang Tai arrived in time. Zhang Tai asks how Mujin knew they were in danger, and Mujin says he simply followed a feeling. He then asks how they got involved with such a madman. Zhang Tai explains they saw him troubling the nuns while passing by, and he had planned to ignore it because Huadojin and Soyeon were with him, but Huadojin stepped in to help, angering the man. Mujin is surprised to learn that his younger brother challenged someone that powerful. Huadojin quickly apologizes for causing more trouble. Mujin, however, praises him for doing the right thing. Huadojin is stunned by his brother's praise, and the moment seems to awaken a treasured memory in his little mind. After helping her fellow nun up, one nun introduces herself as Ryong, a first-generation disciple of the Ime sect, and thanks Mujin for saving their lives. Mujin ignores the introduction and asks who the man he just defeated was, since he had never heard of such a powerful martial master nearby. Ryong explains that he was a peak martial master called Crimson Moonsword, from the Crescent Moon Sword sect of the Four Martial Heavens. He had demanded the whereabouts of a junior nun and suddenly attacked them. After hearing this, Mujin says Crimson Moon's rotten attitude explains his terrible swordsmanship. He is also tired of everyone from the Four Martial Heavens turning out so disgraceful. Ryong thanks Mujin once more and hopes to repay him someday, but Mujin tells her to thank Sangtang-tai and Huadojin instead, since he did not come there to rescue her. Ryong then turns and offers her thanks to Huadojin. This makes him blush and feel like a hero, even as he insists he barely did anything. Mujin watches his younger brother with a proud look. After that, the group gets ready to part ways. Shangtai continues on with the twins, while Mujin goes ahead with the other demon brothers. As Ryong watches her new hero depart, she is amazed that the rumors about his strength were actually true. It makes her wonder whether Saiking is truly about to undergo a major change. Later that night, Mujin and his men arrive outside the residence of Peng, the master of the Pyongyang merchant group. Peng is deeply surprised by Mujin's unexpected arrival. Mujin reminds him that he has come to fulfill his promise. Peng immediately tells his servants to prepare a generous feast for their guest. During the meal, he apologizes for not offering more, explaining that money has been rather tight lately. Mujin notes that Peng looks even more exhausted, likely because he has been going through a difficult time. Just then, the other two merchant masters, Dong and Huang, hurry in excitedly after hearing Mujin arrived. They are amazed he reached the place without an army protecting him. They ask how he managed to survive such a dangerous journey unharmed. Mujin reveals that he dealt with more than 24 assassins and also defeated a dangerous madman known as Crimson Moon Sword. The merchant masters are shocked to hear that Mujin defeated the infamous Crimson Moon. One of them can hardly believe he overcame someone from the Four Martial Heavens. Peng, however, is simply amazed that Mujin survived such a deadly ordeal at all. Meanwhile, Merchant Master Huang is pleased, knowing this will make Mujin's reputation even more intimidating. Mujin then explains everything, including how it began when the injured deputy leader reached his doorstep. The merchants complain about the Cheonghua merchant group's recent oppression. Peng even worries that if nothing is done, they may eventually break into their private homes. Mujin asks them to suggest a plan, since he only came to draw his sword if needed and requires a proper reason to act against them. Mujin decides their plan should start with the nearby Cloth Street, then tells them exactly how to prepare for the larger operation. The next day, Chil Muk and Nosak enter Cloth Street to begin the first phase of Mujin's plan. However, they are surprised to find the market completely deserted and bleak. A short while later, they spot a nearby food stall and stop to eat. Suddenly, a man approaches and tries to lure them toward a different restaurant. Meanwhile, the food stall owner watches silently, trembling in fear. Cheolmuk glances toward the so-called good restaurant. A group of rough-looking thugs is waiting there. When he refuses to move, the man turns aggressive and tries harder to pressure him. When Nosak angrily warns him to back off, he quickly scurries away like a frightened rat. After that, he returns to report everything to his gang. The group then comes back and tries to persuade Cheolmuk and Nosak to move over to their restaurant. Cheolmuk calls them a pack of clowns and tells them to get lost, which only makes them angrier. As the thugs start running their mouths, Cheolmuk loses patience, shuts down their loud talk, and firmly challenges them to fight. Provoked by his words, the thugs immediately rush at Cheolmuk, but he overwhelms them without the slightest effort. Nosak handles his side just as easily. As the clash unfolds, the shop owner shakes nearby, watching his small stall get wrecked. With tears in his eyes, he reminds the thugs that they promised not to damage the shops. Before long, a small crowd gathers, shocked to see the men who had terrorized them being completely overpowered. Meanwhile, back at the Pyongyang merchant group, Mujin writes a letter and hands it to Peng, asking him to deliver it to the Tang clan. Peng agrees to send it swiftly by carrier pigeon. Still, he cannot help being amazed that Mujin has ties to the Tang clan. Just then, Cheolmuk and Nosak return from their little fishing trip, dragging back the thugs from earlier as their catch. They force the men to kneel and keep their heads lowered like captives. Mujin praises the boys for handling the job well. Suddenly, one of the thugs starts bragging again about his connections, but Mujin tells him he already knows they are thugs from the Cheonghua merchant group. He fixes the man with a chilling stare, scolding him for threatening his people first. Mujin adds that their actions can easily be seen as a declaration of war. The man quickly tries to explain that they do not want trouble, but the moment he raises his head, he realizes the person before him is Mujin of the Huo clan. He wonders why Mujin is here and why such a heavy presence surrounds him. Mujin then demands to know where their boss is. At that instant, the man realizes they have fallen straight into Mujin's trap. Chielmuk and Nosak had gone there only to provoke them into acting, giving Mujin the justification he needed. Since the thug refuses to reveal his master's location, Mujin signals for Nosak to apply a little pressure. Nosak immediately strikes down one of the thugs, making it clear that Mujin is not playing around. Even then, the man still refuses to talk and asks why Mujin is tormenting them. When he claims they have no boss, Mujin orders Nosak to deal with the next one. However, before Nosak can act, the man gives in and begs Mujin to spare him in exchange for the information. Mujin is pleased with the result and even pats him on the head for cooperating. Mujin then asks once more who his boss is, demanding his location with a menacing tone. The look on Mujin's face alone is enough to terrify the man. Somewhere inside Zigong Taishan Martial Hall, the Shaolin Grandmaster, Monk Hyunwoo, is shocked to hear of Mujin's latest conquest. He can hardly believe Mujin defeated the infamous Crimson Moon Sword of the Four Martial Heavens. His companion, Ilchong, master of Taishan Martial Hall, excitedly confirms it and says Mujin, born with a heavenly martial body, has become an impressive master. Hyunwoo is pleased, saying his master He Guang judged Mujin correctly, and that Mujin's strength is a blessing to the Central Plains. Ilchong is also glad that Mujin's talent has finally come to light, and he tells Hyunwoo that Mujin's siblings are exceptionally gifted as well. Hyunwoo is surprised to learn that Mujin has more blood relatives in the clan. Ilchong explains that Soyeon and Huodojin displayed their talent at the recent Little Dragon Ascension tournament in Shichang, even pressuring a Daking sect disciple 5 years older. After hearing this, Hyunwoo thanks Ilchong for the tea. He then hurries away with a suspicious air, planning to travel to Sichuan. Elsewhere, inside the MA sect, Jinhua, one of the sect elders, stops by to check on Ryong's recovery before leaving the sect. Ryong wonders why Jinhua is leaving so late at night and asks whether something has happened. Jinhua assures her everything is fine. She explains that she is going to the Hua clan to repay Mujin for saving their sect members and to bring small gifts for his 2 siblings. Ryong is happy to hear this and starts praising Mujin as a hero among heroes. She also compliments Soyeon and Huojin for being bright and clever, making Jinhua laugh and tease her for praising them yet again. As Jinhua leaves, Ryong tells the elder to stay safe on the road. She cannot help wondering what kind of small gift the elder plans to give Mujin's sibling. Back at the Tang clan, the Poison Emperor Tang receives Mujin's letter and decides to head to the Huo clan with his other granddaughter Zhang. However, Zhang Tai's father, the current Tang clan head Zhang Chong, objects to the plan. He opposes Tang's idea of arranging a marriage between Zhang Tai and Mujin, complaining that his daughter is too young. Tang argues she is already at the right age, but Zhang Chong wants her husband to marry into their clan because he fears she may suffer far from home. Tang scolds him for trying to ruin such an excellent marriage prospect and chooses to ignore his complaints. Zhang Chong keeps protesting, growing even angrier when Tang prepares to visit the Hua clan after receiving Mujin's letter. Tang brushes him off, calling him a daughter-obsessed fool. On his way out, Tang runs into Hai, who offers to accompany him. Apparently, he is only a granddaughter from a collateral branch of the Tang clan. Tang is surprised that he wants to go to the Hua clan. He reminds her that she acted as if she hated the place. Hai explains that she only wants to accompany him because Jiang is too young and knows little about the world. Just then, Jiang cuts in and tells Hai that she already knows everything she needs to know about the world. She also says she no longer wants to be treated like a child. They decide to go together, and he promises to show Jiang some good restaurants near the Hua estate. Zheng is pleased when she hears this. With that settled, the 3 of them make their way towards Saicheng. Meanwhile, Mujin and his men follow the thug into the pleasure district to find his boss. The pleasure ladies immediately try to charm them. This leaves the inexperienced demon brothers completely flustered. Tealmuk turns bright red and tells the women he may be too underdeveloped for their attention. His answer only confuses them, since he looks like a towering giant. Just then, the thug tries to dress up the pleasure district with pretty words, proudly calling it the heart of the city. He explains that the pleasure district appeared after the cloth merchants slowly vanished, all thanks to the actions of the Cheonghua merchant group. Mujin feels disgusted and points out that the Cheonghua group likely forced the merchants out first to create such a place. Seeing Mujin's displeasure, the thug pretends not to know. Mujin then tells him that he and his companions played an important role in what happened to Cloth Street. The thug quickly apologizes, claiming he did not know. However, Mujin says he was unaware only because he never cared about how the displaced merchants were struggling to survive. Annoyed, Mujin cuts the conversation short and snaps at the man, asking if they are almost at his boss location. The thug assures him that they are nearly there. A few moments later, he stops before a massive brothel called Twin Flower House, the largest and most famous establishment of its kind in Sichuan. Mujin is stunned by the grand building, which looks more like a royal palace than a brothel. As they step inside Twin Flower House, dense fog immediately surrounds them. While the demon brothers are distracted by the luxurious interior, Mujin finds the scent in the air suspicious. At that moment, one of the women tries to serve the thug, but he quickly sends her away. He then tells Mujin that his boss is upstairs. On the way up, Nosak suddenly feels his mind grow hazy. He is confused since he does not remember drinking any alcohol. All of a sudden, an alluring illusion begins to appear before him. It leaves him deeply flustered. At the same time, Muk starts experiencing something similar. A helpless-looking woman appears before him, begging for his help. She asks Muk to hold her and tries to lure him in. Unfortunately, he begins falling into her trap. Meanwhile, Mujin is dragged into a personal nightmare of his own. He sees a charming woman who resembles Yanhua from his past life. Mujin recognizes something from her voice alone. When he finally sees her face, his eyes widen in shock. As the woman tries to tempt him, Mujin struggles to shake himself free from the illusion. Unfortunately for those behind it, he breaks through the spell with ease and unleashes a powerful strike. Fog filling the room is instantly scattered. The force jolts his men back to their senses. It also creates a loud disturbance outside. After clearing the fog, Mujin angrily orders the woman to leave and she flees in terror. Muk and Nosak finally regain their senses, still confused by what just happened. Muk snaps at the thug for not warning them earlier, and the man quickly apologizes. It turns out the brothel is filled with hallucinogenic smoke, meant to make its victims more dependent on the place. This enrages Mujin, and he orders the pleasure house shut down immediately. He also decides they will destroy the place once everything is finished. He then commands the thug to lead them to his boss, and the man obeys. Not long afterward, they finally reach the so-called boss. The man is also intoxicated by the very atmosphere of his own establishment. Mujin immediately gives Nosak a signal. Nosak quickly snaps the man back to reality. Once he regains his senses, the boss demands to know who Mujin is. Mujin proudly introduces himself, then asks what rank the man holds in the Cheonghua merchant group. The boss wonders how Mujin found his hideout, then answers that he is the deputy chief steward. Mujin tells the steward he has 10 days to pull every Cheonghua business out of Sangryu town. He also warns him to stop all petty attacks against the Hua clan. The deputy steward asks why he should obey and seems confused, claiming he has done nothing to the Hua clan. Seeing that he is only a clueless pawn, Mujin orders him to pass the warning upward. Mujin warns him again that if the Cheonghua merchant group fails to withdraw within 10 days, he will treat it as a declaration of war against his clan. Mujin's threat leaves the deputy chief steward terrified. Mujin also declares that Twin Flower House will be shut down at once. On their way out, they set the place ablaze to ensure it never opens for business again. That night, the so-called largest brothel in town burns down, causing a major uproar. As they leave, Mujin tells Muk to prepare a messenger pigeon as soon as they arrive. He intends to bring the remaining 2 demon brothers into his next plan. Back at the Hua clan estate, Jinhua and Hyunwoo cause a commotion while arguing over who should enter first. Zhao attempts to step in. The 2 old men pay him no attention at all and keep arguing until Tang arrives, making them finally stop. Tang asks what brought them here. 2 elders are just as surprised to find him there. They ask why he came and Tang proudly claims he rushed over because Mujin personally invited him. That makes Jinhua and Hyunwoo, who had been arguing before, immediately turn against him together. They insist they arrived first, so their matter should come before his, but Tang refuses to yield and reminds them that, as the Poison Emperor, he outranks them. As the 3 powerful figures argue over who should be first, Zhou breaks into a cold sweat between them. He silently prays for Mujin to return before they bring the estate down. A short while later, the 3 finally settle inside the estate, with Tang calmly enjoying his usual tea while the others watch in silence. Tang then comments that it has been a long time since the 3 of them gathered like this. Hyunwoo replies that 5 years have passed since they last met. Jinhua says she never imagined meeting both of them at the Hua clan, then adds that she is relieved to see they are both healthy. Tang asks why they came and boasts that, since he is close to Mujin, his own reason needs no explanation. Hyunwoo says the Hua clan shares a karmic bond with Shaolin Temple, but Tang replies that he has never heard of such a thing. Hyunwoo explains that his master was the first person to recognize Mujin's martial talent. Tang finds it ridiculous to call such a small detail a karmic bond, but when Hyunwoo quotes a line from Confucius, Tang lets him have the final word. He then asks whether Jinhua's Imai sect also has a karmic bond with the Hua clan. Jinhua answers that her sect's connection to the Hua clan is stronger than either of theirs. She explains that Mujin defeated the Crimson Moonsword and saved 2 of her disciples, so she came to repay that debt. Tang asks asks how she intends to repay it, and Jinhua says she has brought something valuable. She then reveals that she will personally teach several secret arts of the MA sect to the Hua clan. Zhao is stunned when he hears this. As if that is not surprising enough, Hyunwoo says he came for the same reason. He explains that he has failed to find a worthy disciple, but after hearing about Hua Dojin's exceptional talent, he decided to take him in. Zhao is not happy about this and considers stopping the two elders from making plans while Mujin is away. Since the Hua clan has both a boy and a girl among the siblings, Jinhua says there is no need for them to argue. Hyunwoo agrees that each of them can take one. Tang reminds them that Mujin's siblings have already begun learning the Hua clan's secret arts. Because of that, taking them to another sect as disciples isn't so simple. For the two of them to formally enter temple ranks, they would have to cut off their bloodline succession to the Hua clan. Tang firmly warns them that making such an important decision without the proper authority present is inappropriate. Sensing his displeasure, Hyunwoo quickly apologizes and explains that the rules of the Central Plains are rather rigid. He then clarifies that Hua Dojin does not need to join Shaolin Temple's ranks. Hyunwoo simply wants to teach him and leave a mark on the world. Even so, Zhou remains uneasy about them discussing the Hua clan's future without its leader present. That only makes him wish even harder for Mujin to come back soon. Meanwhile, at the training grounds, the other two demon brothers finally receive Mujin's letter. After reading it, Dong Jiok tells Zhang Tai to get ready because they must leave immediately. Just then, he suddenly calls out and asks when Mujin will return home. As she stammers through her words, Zhang hides nervously behind her. Meanwhile, the brothers, who have never even spoken properly to a girl, freeze completely and cannot say a word. Back at the Kongdong sect, the elders urge their sect leader to decide how they should handle the Kyonghua group's conflict with the Hua clan. One of them argues that the sect should support Cheonghua, since the group helped them during difficult times. However, the sect leader refuses, saying they have no proper reason to interfere. One sect master, Haichin, reminds him that their prized disciple Dobo, the son of Cheonghua merchant group's leader, was crippled by the Hua clan. Another sect master, Zhao Kun, argues that the sect should not get involved in personal disputes. He adds that they already showed support by sending a witness to the duel between Mujin and Dobo. He also reminds them that the Hua clan is an orthodox sect like Kongdong. Because of that, starting a conflict with them would only bring deep shame to the Kongdong sect. Still, the sect leader Hewan does not want to abandon the Kyonghua merchant group completely, since they aided Kongdong in a time of need. Ignoring them now would be seen as unrighteous. Haichin agrees with that reasoning, while Zhou Kun remains unconcerned. But after thinking it over, Zhao Kun comes up with a way to step in without insulting either side. He suggests resolving the dispute by sending a martial master to mediate, not to fight. The sect leader accepts the idea and decides to send Jiayul, their most skilled and reliable martial master. Soon after, Jiayul meets Ho Yan, the deputy leader of the Cheonghua merchant group. Ho Yan respectfully thanks Jiayul for coming in person to help mediate the situation. However, to prevent any misunderstanding, Jiayul warns him that he did not come as anyone's weapon. He adds that the Hua clan is also an orthodox sect, so he cannot raise his hand against them. Ho Yan assures Jiayul that he understands and has already received an explanation from the Kongdong sect leader. After making their positions clear, Jiayul and Ho Yan decide to set out on their peacekeeping mission. That night, in the Ponyang merchant group courtyard, Mujin spars with Kiol Muk to test his progress. Kiol Muk attacks with everything he has. Even so, Mujin overpowers him with ease after striking him hard in the stomach, almost leaving the poor man doubled over. Mujin throws him down onto the ground. Meanwhile, two of the merchant group leaders watch in amazement, unable to believe this is merely training and not an actual life or death battle. Kiol Muk, for his part, is completely exhausted after being thoroughly beaten down. Even so, Mujin praises him for improving his endurance and withstanding such a powerful blow. Next, Nosak rushes forward with his spear to show how much he has improved. Mujin slips past the attack instantly and counters in return. However, Nosak is able to block several of the attacks. Mujin tells him that his movements are far too slow. He decides to demonstrate a proper ambush and suddenly appears behind Nosak, giving him advice on how to move more quickly. Nosak grumbles that Mujin is simply too fast to be reasonable. His complaint earns him a sharp slap on the back. Once the training ends, Mujin tells Cheol Muk that his movements are too rigid and advises him to find a better way to move with flexibility. Suddenly, one of the merchant leaders rushes over in a panic, calling for Mujin and reporting that strange visitors have arrived. He quickly explains that people from the Cheonghua merchant group and the Kongdong sect have come to meet Mujin. A few moments later, Mujin walks in with the confidence of someone who owns the entire place. Before offering his greeting, Jiayul praises Mujin for preserving the proper spirit of the orthodox path. After greeting Mujin, he introduces himself as the Kongdong sect's Law Pavilion master and tells Mujin to take a seat. Uncomfortable silence settles over the room. Mujin takes a sweet time before finally sitting down. Huyan. Only then does he introduce himself, barely offering a proper bow. This slightly irritates Jaehyul, who quietly observes that Mujin is rather arrogant for his age. Still, he understands why, since even a hidden dragon remains a dragon. Huyan then introduces himself as the deputy leader of the Cheonghua merchant group and asks why Mujin wanted to see him, which annoys Mujin, because his warning was clearly ignored. Huyan angrily demands to know why Mujin has been troubling his merchants and businesses. Mujin finds the accusation absurd and compares it to a guilty man blaming another, prompting Jaehyul to step in. Mujin completely ignores him and mocks the Cheonghua merchant group for acting so powerful, as if the Kongdong sect were nothing more than their servant. Both Jaehyul and Huyan are stunned by Mujin's open disrespect. Mujin then boldly asks they truly thought bringing some so-called elder from the Kongdong sect would scare him or force him to submit. Jaehyul is shocked by his words and never imagined Mujin would dare speak so bluntly. Even so, he turns to Huyan and scolds him for making it sound like a one-sided attack. Huyan denies it, claiming he has no idea what Mujin means. Peng steps in to explain, saying warriors from Mujin's clan were attacked by the Gai merchant group on Fabric Street, causing losses to many Pyongyang shops. He adds that the Cheonghua fire happened accidentally during their demand for accountability. Peng asks whether Jaehyul truly knew nothing about this, leaving Jaehyul at a loss for words. Huyan interrupts, insisting the entire matter was merely a clash between hot-blooded youths. Still, he asks whether compensation is what Mujin wants, pointing out that they too have suffered heavy losses because of him. Mujin cuts him off and reminds them that the whole area originally belonged to the Pyongyang merchant group. He says Cheonghua suffered no real loss because stolen property was simply returned to its rightful owner. As Mujin speaks, his anger grows, and he tells Huyan that his irritating beard makes him look no different from a goat. Mujin then states his demands clearly, ordering the Cheonghua group to withdraw completely and stop using its financial power to oppress the three merchant groups. Huyan slams the table in frustration, asking who Mujin thinks he is to make such demands. He argues that running a merchant group depends on financial competition. Mujin cuts him off, saying he has not finished speaking, then pulls out a note and shows it to everyone at the table. He asks Huyan if he knows what it is, then reveals that it is a confession taken from assassins hired under Cheonhua's orders. Growing angrier, he asks what made them dare target his younger siblings. Mujin tells him it was bold to come here and threaten him, then demands a single reason why he should let him walk away. As he says this, Mujin's overwhelming hostility fills the entire room. Even Jaehyul feels the pressure and begins to tremble, stunned that someone barely grown could possess such a powerful presence. Jaehyul steps in and urges Mujin to calm himself. He then turns to Huyan and asks whether they truly sent assassins after Mujin's siblings. Huyan denies everything, claiming this is the first he has heard of it, and that merchants have no reason to target martial artists. Seeing that Huyan will only keep denying the truth, Mujin says he will handle the matter in his own way. Huyan cries out like a wronged innocent, telling Jaehyul that Mujin is trying to frame them for something they never did. Meanwhile, Jaehyul begins regretting that he and his sect have become involved in something far beyond their expectations. Jaehyul tries to steer matters in Cheonghua's favor, saying his sect has long ties with the group and finds it hard to believe they would use such methods. He also says they should not fight over one self-proclaimed assassin's words. Jaehyul says they need firmer evidence, and Mujin understands that he is being told to find more proof for his claim. Mujin says he has no problem with that, but only on one condition: the Cheonghua group must withdraw at once. He assures them that if they do, conflict can be avoided. Huyan, however, is too proud and believes Mujin is not truly frightening with the Kongdong sect behind them. Huyan then rejects Mujin's terms, saying they cannot pull out their business based only on his accusations. Mujin tells them that, in that case, there is nothing more to discuss. He rises to leave and tells Huyan they will see whether he can keep that same pride in a few days. As Mujin prepares to go, Jaehyul stops him, warning that the Kongdong sect's image will suffer if he leaves like this. Mujin says he does not care, since Jaehyul was the one who rejected the proposal, and tells him to take that up with Huyan. Mujin also orders Jaehyul to withdraw the Kongdong sect from mediating the conflict, making it clear there is nothing they can do. Mujin says he cannot believe the Kongdong sect speaks of justice and fairness while defending Cheonghua, when all they do is order weaker sects around like children. He makes it clear to Jaehyul that he is not one of those weaklings they can push around, then declares that Jaehyul's trip was pointless. Seeing how things are unfolding, Jaehyul realizes Mujin is even more stubborn than he expected, but worries the Kongdong sect's reputation will suffer if Mujin leaves without yielding. Jaehyul then says the Cheonghua group has helped his sect before, and while he personally does not wish to become their blade, his sect's position is different. Jaehyul makes it clear that the situation could escalate into a major conflict. Mujin replies that the same logic applies to the Pengyang group, since they cannot ignore its suffering. He says the Kongdong sect's involvement means nothing because justice is on their their side. Jaeul then proposes that they cross swords, with the losing side withdrawing from the dispute. He also promises to help identify those who tried to harm Mujin's siblings. Mujin, being himself, agrees to the terms without the slightest hesitation. Soon after, they step outside for the duel, while Peng prays for Mujin's victory. Chiolmuk simply stares at him in confusion, since Peng clearly has no idea who Mujin really is. Before the duel begins, Jaeul states that the losing side must withdraw from the conflict immediately, and Hoyan agrees. Deep inside, Hoyan is delighted, believing they have finally trapped Mujin where they want him, since he thinks there is no chance Mujin can defeat Jaeul. Before the duel begins, Jaeul assumes Mujin only defeated the Crimson Moon Sword through luck, because the energy he senses from him feels completely ordinary. He decides to disable just one of Mujin's arms, since he sees him as a promising talent and does not want to end his future outright. Jaeul announces the start of the match. Before he can even blink, Mujin rushes straight at him. Mujin lands a single strike that knocks him unconscious. A short while later, Jaeul wakes up. He finds Mujin standing before him with overwhelming presence, calmly suggesting that Jaeul admit defeat. Jaeul is left completely stunned as the reality of his loss finally sinks in. Even Peng celebrates Mujin's victory from the side, while Chiolmuk tells him this is nothing unusual for Mujin. While Peng is cheering, Hoyan nearly loses his composure, unable to accept such an unexpected result. Keeping his promise, Jaeul tells Mujin that the Kongdong sect will withdraw from the matter. With that, Jaeul takes his leave. Hoyan's face looks as if it is begging for help, but there is no one left to save him. After Jaeul leaves, Mujin tells Hoyan to keep talking boldly just as he did when Jaeul was still there. Hoyan instantly becomes meek and tries to twist the situation in his favor. Mujin orders him to kneel if he wants to keep his life. Mujin explains that Hoyan has two choices. The first is to ignore what will happen to Bukoyan, their chief steward, since they crossed the line and cannot escape the consequences. Mujin says that afterward, the Cheonghua group must withdraw and hand over 30% of its Hubei tea monopoly to the Pyongyang merchant group. Hoyan stammers, trying to object. Mujin then reminds him that there is still a second choice, which would mean open war between them. He warns Hoyan that he will remove anyone who stands in his way, and even urges him to send more Death Forest members so he can wipe them out. Mujin assures Hoyan that if they choose the second option, he will make the Cheonghua group vanish completely and let the Pyongyang group replace them. Mujin looks truly terrifying as he says this, and Hoyan can clearly tell he is more serious than ever. Seeing this, Hoyan realizes gambling with the merchant group's fate is too dangerous, especially after Jaeul lost so easily. With no better choice, he chooses the first option, believing his leader will understand. Later, Lee Suman of the Cheonghua merchant group is lying in bed when a mysterious figure enters his room and attacks him. But Choyan also wakes up, only to find a frightening masked figure armed and standing before him. He ends up suffering the same fate as his chief steward. A few days later, at the Pyongyang merchant group, Chiolmuk finally reunites with his brothers. The brothers tell Mujin it was troublesome tracking down the Death Forest members who escaped, but once they caught them and strongly pressured them, the men had no problem writing confessions. Nosek says Mujin's name has spread everywhere, because people started bowing the moment they heard it. Mujin asks about Bukoyan and the irritating steward. They assure Mujin that the two were dealt with completely. Mujin is satisfied and tells them to make certain the incident remains hidden. With everything settled, Mujin takes a deep breath and tells the brothers it is time to return, since they have finished clearing out what needed to be handled. Peng is surprised that Mujin and his men are leaving already, before he has even had the chance to properly entertain them. Mujin says he must return to the clan quickly because he has been away for some time, but he promises Peng he will look forward to another visit. With that, a carriage is prepared for Mujin and his men. As the street merchants see him preparing to leave, they shout loudly, calling for him to wait. The merchants rush to his carriage, thanking him for his help and asking him to visit again, promising to treat him with the finest things they have. Even the young women tease the four brothers, telling them to come back whenever they like. Mujin gives a small smile. As they ride away, he quietly thinks that the whole farewell was actually rather pleasant. Not long after, they arrive back at the clan. As usual, Mesok rushes over to greet him. Mujin simply pushes him aside, telling him to stop acting so clingy. His siblings also run over and embrace him. Mujin asks how they have been, and they tell him the Tang sisters have been visiting, so they have not felt bored at all. Hearing this, Mujin wonders who these Tang sisters are. When Du and Zhou step out to welcome him, Mujin asks them about the Tang sisters. They simply say the sisters have been eagerly waiting for his return and suggest that he come inside right away. Mujin is completely confused, but once he enters, he sees Tang, his granddaughters, and two strange old men drinking together. Tang greets him cheerfully. The moment she notices Mujin, her eyes shine with excitement, as if the person she had long longed for has finally come back. She quickly rises to greet Mujin, and just as they are in the middle of it, Zhang Tai suddenly cuts in from behind, commenting on how handsome Mujin is. She smiles brightly and tells Mujin she is truly happy to finally meet him. Tang is just as excited about the situation and urges Mujin to introduce himself to his granddaughter, which Mujin promptly does. Tang then speaks to Mujin through telepathy. He warns him about the two other visitors, telling him to be careful or he may lose both of his siblings. Yunwoo then introduces himself to Mujin, saying it is a pleasure to finally meet him. At the same time, Jinhua of Imei offers her own introduction. Seeing how determined the two of them are, Mujin assures Tang that he will handle themselves. Tang then tells his granddaughters that they should give everyone some privacy. After they step outside, Hai scolds Zhang Tai for saying such embarrassing things in front of Mujin. But Zhang Tai sees nothing wrong with it and tells her sister that Mujin was even more handsome than she expected. Hai clutches her head in frustration, and while she is still dealing with that, Zhang Tai notices the four brothers and greets them, asking them to keep protecting Mujin. The brothers, always awkward around girls, freeze in place and cannot utter a single word. Inside, Mujin asks Jinhua and Hyunwoo why they came to the clan, since he knows his clan has no ties to Imei or Shaolin. Jinhua explains that they recently heard he saved their sisters from dangerous men, preserving Emmy's reputation, so they could not ignore his kindness. Mujin replies that things simply turned out that way, and it was nothing special. Jinhua, however, insists that kindness must be repaid, and as repayment she wants to pass Emmy's secret arts to the Flamua clan. She explains that these secret arts are usually never taught to other sects, but their sect leader judged Mujin's kindness worthy of such an exception. Mujin admits that receiving secret arts is a valuable opportunity, but asks who they intend to teach. He explains that he has already mastered his clan's unique arts, while his siblings are also learning its secret techniques. Speaking of the clan elders, Mujin says they are already too old to become disciples, and Jinhua plainly tells him she wants to pass the arts on to Soyeon. Jinhua says Soyeon can train properly while continuing to master her own clan's secret arts, so there is no need to worry. Mujin tells her that Soyeon is his only sister, so there is no way he will let Jinhua teach her Mei's secret arts. Jinhua realizes Mujin is worried that Soyeon's name will be entered into their sect records, but she assures him that will not happen. Tang quickly speaks to Mujin telepathically, warning that the bond between master and disciple is not something easily broken. Mujin is about to repeat his refusal. At that moment, Soyeon appears behind them and calls out loudly for her brother. She tells him that she wants to learn what Jinhua is offering. It is called the Snow-Drifting Cloud Piercing Palm Strike. Mujin turns around in shock, realizing they have already done something with Soyeon, while Jinhua wears a satisfied expression. Soyeon steps forward and tells Mujin she is genuinely interested in learning the palm strike Jinhua showed her. Mujin pats his sister's head and asks Jinhua what she showed Soyeon. Jinhua answers that it was nothing much, only a basic palm strike. Soyeon excitedly praises the technique, saying it was incredibly powerful and unlike anything she had seen before. She adds that Jinhua promised to teach her an even stronger palm art by the time Mujin returned. After hearing this, Mujin takes a deep breath and begins weighing every factor. He knows the Flame Emperor's red flame art is an advanced martial art, but it is also a yang-based technique. He believes it is excellent for a man with strong yang energy, but difficult for a young girl to master. Seeing Mujin struggle to decide, Soyeon tells him she will not bring it up again, but Mujin reassures her that everything is fine. Mujin realizes that the martial arts of the Imei sect may actually suit her well. Mujin then tells Jinhua that his sister is brilliant and exceptional, and as the clan's only daughter, he has no intention of sending her far away, so Jinhua must take proper care of her right here at the manor. Jinhua's eyes shine with excitement the moment she hears his answer. She then offers a prayer for the bond they have formed. Hyunwoo congratulates the Imei sect for establishing a connection with the Flamua clan. Yet deep inside, Hyunwoo is already thinking that he must secure Hua Dojin for himself, because the boy is remarkable. Although Hua Dojin's martial talent is outstanding, Hyunwoo is even more drawn to him because of his character. He has seen that Hua Dojin is calm and composed, yet a fierce competitive spirit burns within him. From the moment Hyunwoo laid eyes on him, he knew this was the disciple he had been searching for. Hyunwoo tells Mujin that Hua Dojin should be informed of what happened, while Tang immediately warns Mujin to stay alert because the second snake has begun moving. Mujin is surprised that Hyunwoo wants to form ties with a secular martial clan and tells him the matter feels rather burdensome. Hyunwoo smiles and says while practitioners may keep distance from the secular world, this situation is simply a matter of circumstance. Hyunwoo proudly says he has finally found the right karmic connection to pass on his enlightenment, so his personal circumstances do not matter much. Hearing that, Mujin realizes he is dealing with someone far from ordinary. Mujin tries a diplomatic approach, explaining that his younger brother carries an important destiny and must master their clan's secret arts. He says their circumstances do not allow Hua Dojin to become Hyunwoo's disciple. Hyunwoo quickly counters that he has no intention of taking Hua Dojin away. He suggests giving him a small room so he can teach Hua Dojin gradually from nearby. Mujin is shocked that the old monk is actually willing to stay at the manor. Tang, however, urges Mujin not to lower his guard. Mujin then tells Hyunwoo that he must first hear what his brother thinks and suggests they go outside. Mujin calls Hua Dojin over and explains that Hyunwoo wants to take him as a disciple. He asks what Hua Dojin wants, reminding him that he also has a duty to inherit their grandfather's secret arts. Hua Dojin tells Mujin that he has no intention of abandoning their grandfather's secret arts. However, he truly wants to learn the technique Hyunwoo showed him. Mujin is startled by this and wonders what Hyunwoo and Jinhwa did while he was gone. Mujin turns to Hyunwoo and asks what he showed Hua Dojin. Hyunwoo tries to sound modest, saying it was nothing serious, merely a small glimpse of what he can do. Hyunwoo then decides to demonstrate what Hua Dojin saw, though he says it is nothing as impressive as Tang's abilities. Hyunwoo pulls back his sleeve and throws a punch with his arm. The power of the punch shoots toward a tree, leaving a deep dent that makes the entire trunk tremble. Both Tang and Mujin are stunned by what they see. Hyunwoo proudly says he only held back because he did not want to damage the clan's tree. Tang is completely shaken, because the move he just witnessed is the 100 Steps Divine Fist Strike, a Shaolin secret art that vanished 30 years ago. Hua Dojin then tells Mujin that he wants to learn it. He believes his grandfather's secret arts can still be pushed even further. Mujin already understands this, since combining the precision of the 100 Steps Divine Fist Strike with the Flame Emperor's Fierce Fist techniques would be incredible. He smiles, never expecting the Shaolin secret arts he once erased to return before him. Mujin finally accepts the idea and tells Hyunwoo to train Hua Dojin properly. In the end, Hyunwoo also succeeds in taking Hua Dojin as his disciple. Later that night, Tang and Mujin sit down for a conversation. Tang mocks himself, admitting he tried hard to stop them from taking talents from Sichuan to Mount Song because he hates losing them. Still, he knows an opportunity like this will not come twice. Mujin cuts in and asks whether Tang would have entrusted his granddaughter to aim. Tang quickly says no, and Mujin tells him to listen to his own answer. Mujin asks why 3 heavenly bodies had to appear in a single household, and Tang is surprised such a thing truly exists. Mujin explains that this physique is the opposite of demonic energy, yet it shows outstanding results in orthodox martial techniques. Hearing Mujin speak about it reminds Tang of one reason he wants Mujin in his household, so he asks what Mujin thinks of Zhang. Mujin snaps at Tang, reminding him that he has already made his answer clear. Tang is surprised Mujin still insists on being so stubborn and asks if he likes men, but Mujin firmly denies it. A moment later, Mujin asks Tang what he sees in him, considering Tang is far older. Yet Tang still lets him speak so casually, and Tang is impressed that Mujin finally noticed. Tang explains that with Mujin, he does not sense any real age gap. Their conversations feel strangely natural, as if he is speaking with an old friend he has known for years. Mujin smiles at this and says that many years ago, there was a woman he loved. For her, he had even been willing to give up his life as a martial artist and go against his master's final wish, all because of that woman, whom he loved with all his heart. Tang does not quite take the story seriously, but Mujin continues speaking. He says the woman he is talking about was born with nothing. Even so, she raised 2 younger siblings while asking for nothing in return. She struggled alone without anyone's help, showing how pure and noble she was. Mujin speaks of her deep integrity with quiet admiration. Tang then asks why Mujin is no longer with that woman. Mujin smiles and reveals that she passed away. He admits he was foolish to think he could walk the path of an assassin while keeping an ordinary woman beside him. He explains that the woman her 2 siblings lost their lives because orthodox warriors came after him, and that was the beginning of his path toward tearing through all 9 sects. Tang is taken aback by this and begins wondering whether Mujin is truly in his right mind. He asks if Mujin is drunk, but Mujin assures him he is completely sober and is only telling Tang about his past and his revenge. He says the conflict with the Namgung clan was where everything began. What started as something small eventually grew, until she died at the hands of Namgung Qianyong. Tang becomes even more intrigued, because Qianyong's name was erased from Murim 45 years ago. Mujin says that name belongs to an enemy he has never forgotten, and after his lover and her siblings died, his world turned completely bleak. For the next 15 years, he kept fighting against the 9 sects. Mujin says the first clan he brought down was the Namgung clan, and before long, every orthodox sect in Murim had turned against him. Without hesitation, he cut through them all. Not long after that, people gave him a remarkable name, the Divine Demon. The moment Tang hears this, he becomes even more agitated. He thinks Mujin may still not have recovered from his madness. Mujin says Tang may believe him or not, but his expression now is exactly the same as when they first met. Mujin reveals that it was when Tang sat with the 4 great clan heads heads, excluding the Namgung clan. He also says that was his first time entering the Central Plains. Tang rises from his seat in shock. He demands to know how Mujin knows that, but Mujin ignores the question and continues his story. He says he did not know Tang and the others had rented the tavern that day, and he would have gone elsewhere to eat, but trusting his master's claim that no Central Plains martial artist could match him, his youthful arrogance led him into a fight, until Tang suddenly stops him. Tang is left wondering how someone as young as Mujin could know a secret he had buried for 60 years. In truth, Tang had been desperately trying to forget that disgraceful incident from long ago. Mujin goes on, saying it had been one man facing 17 opponents, though he admits his grandfather's poison was extremely hard to defend against. Tang grows even more uneasy and asks who has been feeding Mujin all this information. He wonders if Mujin is the divine demon's disciple or heard it directly from him, leaving Mujin surprised that Tang still doubts him. Mujin then says he is impressed, since Tang seems to have overcome the weakness in his right arm and grown powerful enough to be called the Poison Emperor. As Mujin keeps speaking, Tang wonders how he knows about the hidden defect in his body, a secret known only to himself. This slowly convinces him that Mujin truly is the divine demon. He realizes that Flamehua's son must have conquered his madness and become a formidable martial artist, because the divine demon was beside him. A chilling aura begins spreading from Tang's body as he asks Mujin which path he would choose, orthodox martial arts or demonic martial arts. Mujin smiles at the question and asks Tang what truly separates the two. Tang is taken aback that someone with Mujin's experience would ask such a thing. Still, he answers, saying anyone who builds martial arts through demonic methods is a demonic martial artist. Mujin asks whether learning orthodox arts makes one orthodox, and Tang replies that those who learn orthodox techniques but abandon the orthodox path are considered unorthodox, even demonic. Mujin then brings up the 9 sects, asking about those who harmed innocent people and caused bloody turmoil over the years. He asks whether such people should be called orthodox or demonic. That question strikes Tang deeply. In essence, the incident involving the divine demons revealed to orthodox martial artists what horrors they could create once they lost their justification and strayed from the orthodox path. It makes Tang sincerely question whether they still deserve to call themselves orthodox martial artists. Tang tells Mujin that everything from back then has already been left behind. Mujin agrees it may feel distant to people like Tang, but to him, it happened only yesterday. Mujin tells Tang that the path a person follows is not what matters, because everyone lives in their own way. To him, differing beliefs alone should never become a reason for bloodshed. Mujin makes it clear that he does not care whether he walks the demonic or orthodox path, as long as he can raise Huadojin and Soyan well, since they are his last remaining blood relatives. Tang lowers his head in relief, saying it is fortunate that another divine demon will not appear in the Central Plains, because one great tragedy was already more than enough. Mujin then asks whether Tang would have attacked him if he had chosen the path of a demonic martial artist, and Tang honestly says that, as an orthodox martial artist, he would have. Tang laughs and says anyone who had seen the divine demon would react the same way. Mujin then reminds him that just moments earlier, Tang had been speaking to him like an old friend. Tang then asks Mujin a serious question, wanting to know who he thinks would win if they fought right now. Mujin answers plainly, saying he would probably die. Tang is startled and asks whether Mujin is not secretly concealing his inner energy. Mujin reminds him that his current body is a heavenly martial body, which means he cannot cultivate demonic arts. Tang then asks how he managed to learn the Peerless 9 Swords. Mujin explains that the founder of the Peerless 9 Swords was a close friend of his master, and had taken a disciple in his later years. However, that disciple passed away, so the founder entrusted the art to Mujin's master to prevent it from vanishing. Because of that, the technique eventually reached Mujin. Tang then asks what would happen if they fought in their previous lives while using the martial arts Mujin currently possesses. Mujin tells him that unless Tang has reached the realm of enhanced poison, he would have absolutely no chance. Tang is stunned to hear that a realm called enhanced poison exists, and Mujin assures him it does, since he has reached a similar level himself. The two eventually burst into laughter while talking about how Tang somehow produces drinks from nowhere, though Tang warns that he may have to silence him if Mujin reveals the secret. The next morning, Tang and his granddaughters prepare to depart, and he tells Mujin that he will stop by from time to time. Mujin says Tang may visit whenever he likes, but not too frequently, and his response leaves the two clan elders completely shocked. After Tang leaves, the elders question Mujin, asking if his illness has returned, because he just told the Poison Emperor not to visit often. Mujin tells them he has a proper reason. When they ask what that reason is, he simply says they do not need to know the details. Meanwhile, Tang remains stunned by the truth that Mujin is actually Zhang Qian, the divine demon. Mujin was once a man who nearly swept through the Central Plains because of the woman he loved. Tang realizes that even after receiving a new life, Mujin's devotion to her has not changed, so he decides it is best to respect his choice. Tang had desperately wanted to make him his son-in-law, but in the end he had no choice but to accept how things had unfolded. She notices the uneasy look on her grandfather's face. She asks what he and Mujin talked about throughout the night. Tang casually says they discussed many things. Since 45 years had passed since they parted, leaving he confused by what she just heard. As time passed, Hua Dojin and Soyeon quickly began mastering the secret techniques of Aimei and Shaolin respectively. The two masters were utterly astonished by what they were seeing. Filled with joy, they teach the children every movement technique they are meant to learn. Even Mujin finds himself impressed by how quickly his siblings are improving. Zhao remarks that guarding against the two might someday become difficult for him, but then corrects himself, saying they still have a long road ahead. Zhao argues that the two have already gone beyond others their age. At that moment, Mujin notices Zhao and Du smiling in a strangely suspicious way. He asks them what is troubling them now. Zhou excitedly tells him that the clan head succession ceremony has finally arrived. Mujin is stunned when the realization hits him. A few days later, the manor is dressed in a festive atmosphere. Clan members gather to watch Mujin inherit his father's position. Even Masuk sheds tears of happiness, having never imagined that such a day would come. Mujin appears before everyone in elegant clothing, wearing a proud smile. As he walks through the manor, surrounded by the crowd gathered to witness his rise, Mujin scolds Zhou and Du for inviting so many people after he specifically told them to keep things quiet. They explain that there is no way the event could stay modest when Tang, Jinhua, and Hyunwoo are all present. Even Siyun has come, bowing before Mujin and offering greetings to the new clan head. Mujin teases him, saying he never expected him to travel all the way from the Beck Manor. Deep down, however, Suyun knows he no longer has the nerve to create trouble for Mujin, with so many powerful people supporting him. The three merchants are also in attendance. Mujin thanks them for coming all this way to celebrate with him. The three of them tell him that their group would be meaningless without him, so they will keep giving their full support to the clan. Mujin thanks them, saying their words give him confidence. Zhou then speaks to him through telepathy, explaining that they mean the share of profits from the Cheonghua group's tea business. Mujin becomes curious after hearing that, and the elders explain that the merchants are earning astonishing profits from it, which leaves Mujin feeling relieved. The merchants then tell Mujin that they have prepared a present for him, and when he asks what it is, they reveal it is a lesser purifying pill said to boost one's inner energy by 20 years. Mujin is stunned and quickly accepts the pillbox, promising to make proper use of it. After the greetings and formalities are finished, the third succession ceremony of the Flame Hua clan officially begins. Mujin quietly swears to raise the Flamhua clan into the strongest clan in Sichuan, and until that day comes, he intends only to borrow Mujin's body. It is truly remarkable that Mujin, once dismissed as the family's useless disgrace, has encountered such a heavenly opportunity. That fate made it possible for Zhang Taiqian to enter his body. After the succession ceremony, everything continues to progress without any problems. Mujin soon returns to his normal routine of daily training. He is in the middle of one of those training sessions. When the two clan elders come to see him, they tell him it is time to leave for Mount Song. Mujin asks why he needs to go there. The elders ask him whether he has no interest at all in watching the Orthodox Murim tournament. Mujin is completely confused when he hears this. As for the tournament, it is the greatest gathering of the Central Plains Orthodox sects, held only once every 5 years. It is a martial arts contest where the finest young talents of the Orthodox sects gather, and the champion gains tremendous wealth and honor. Mujin bluntly says he is not interested, since he sees no reason to watch it. The elders explain that it would be an excellent learning opportunity for Doji and Soyeon. They add that the two of them are very eager to see the Murim tournament, and the moment Mujin hears that, he starts to worry. Changes his decision right away, realizing that the event could serve as valuable motivation for Huardojin and Soyeon. Soon after, they arrange a carriage that will take them to Mount Song. Before setting off, Mujin tells Du to send a carrier pigeon if anything unexpected happens. Mujin and the children are to be escorted by Nosak, Jinhua, and Hyunwoo. Meanwhile, Mujin's enemies have already prepared an ambush for him, the moment they learn that he is traveling toward Mount Song. As the journey continues, Mujin notices how delighted his siblings are throughout the trip. He tells them they should have said sooner that they were so excited to attend the tournament. Jinhua says she is relieved to see the children so happy, and she admits she is also thrilled, because this is her first trip to Mount Song. Mujin looks at Hyunwoo and asks why he stayed quiet, even though the tournament involves the Shaolin Temple. Hyunwoo replies that Shaolin likely does not miss him, and his only concern is watching Huadojin grow. Soyeon and Huadojin ask their masters whether people using the same techniques as them will appear at the tournament, but their masters reassure them that only they can use those skills. Suddenly Mujin senses a trace of hostile intent. It seems to be following them, so he tells Nozak to prepare himself. Just as Mujin expected, 30 warriors are riding behind them, while 2 suspicious figures have already taken positions up ahead. Because of this, the enemy squad's leader is convinced that Mujin has no way to survive. In front of the carriage, 2 deranged men have burned a merchant's carriage to block the road. They are tormenting the helpless merchant, while introducing themselves as the Fire Shadow Twin Elders. They claim they will end the poor merchant's suffering without pain, but instead they deal with him in a cruel and horrifying way using their grotesque hands. The red-haired twin is named Chu Myungun, while the white-haired one is Chogayak. As the carriage draws near the burning scene, everyone inside the carriage senses the fierce killing intent. It seems to be coming from every direction. Mujin reaches for a sword and orders everyone else to remain where they are, while he takes care of the problem himself. The twins are surprised that only one person comes out of the carriage, since they were told more than 4 people would be inside. Mujin steps forward and asks the twins who they are and why they are blocking the road. The twins ask whether he is the one known as the Hidden Dragon, and as soon as Mujin hears that, he realizes they were sent by the Crescent Moon Sword sect. Myungun praises Mujin's sharp instincts, but says his tongue is far too rude. Hyunwoo and Jinhwa finally get out of the carriage, and the fear on their faces is impossible to miss when they see the twins. Gajak says they are thrilled to finally meet them, since they have been waiting for the chance to finish them off. Hyunwoo tells Mujin that the twins are unorthodox path masters who use sorcery, but he believes they can still win if they work together. Suddenly, the 30 warriors who had been pursuing them arrive as well, making the situation far more dangerous. Hyunwoo and Jinhwa panic, asking when those warriors managed to appear. Mujin, however, shows no surprise since he has already known about them for some time. Dojin and Soyeon are the only ones inside the carriage, and as the situation unfolds, they realize they need to keep a low profile. Jinhwa and Hyunwoo volunteer to draw the enemy's attention so Mujin and the others can make their escape. But Mujin explains that they will never lose their pursuers, while they are still traveling by carriage. He then asks whether the 2 of them can hold back the twins for 30 minutes. Since it is only that long, Hyunwoo and Jinhwa tell Mujin they should manage. Mujin says he will handle the warriors surrounding them first, then return to deal with the twins. Hyunwoo and Jinhwa are stunned by his words, because they cannot imagine such a thing being possible. After everyone accepts the plan, Mujin shifts his focus toward the 30 warriors. He tells Nosak that he is relying on him to protect the children, making it clear that not even one enemy should get near them. The leader of the 30 warriors assumes this mission will be simple, so he commands his men to charge at Mujin. He shouts out an order for them to take formation. Mujin bursts into laughter when he hears it, realizing these warriors clearly have no idea who they are facing. Mujin releases a terrifying killing intent. The pressure makes chills run through their bodies. His presence is unbearably intense. Even the twins are forced to acknowledge him, since his killing intent resembles that of a powerful, unorthodox martial artist, despite his young age. Hyunwoo is the first to move. He unleashes the 100 Steps Divine Fist Strike. A powerful wave shoots straight toward Gajak. Gajak succeeds in blocking the blow. Even so, the impact drives him backward. When he checks his arm guard, he is shocked to find it scratched, proving just how fierce the attack was. Myungun is impressed as he recognizes the technique immediately. Alec, however, is only furious. Burning with anger, he rushes toward Hyunwoo, flames trailing behind his every step. Hyunwoo can clearly sense the weight of his overwhelming presence. He makes a bold move and suddenly turns to the right. Then he dashes into the forest, forcing Gajak to follow after him. Hyunwoo abruptly turns back and launches another series of sharp, painful attacks. This infuriates Gajak, who warns Hyunwoo that he will make him pay if he ever gets caught. While Hyunwoo keeps Gajak occupied, Jinhwa understands that Myungun is now her responsibility. Myungun mocks Jinhwa, saying she looks older than when he last saw her. Jinhwa fires back by telling him his face is still ugly. She adds that although she thought he would end up alone, he somehow found a worthless soulmate just as unpleasant as himself. Those words are more than enough to enrage Myungun. He gathers his fiery power and prepares to clash with Jinhwa. Jinhwa also settles into her stance and asks Myungun whether he truly thinks he can defeat her. Myungun lunges at Jinhwa, but she blocks his strike using her palm technique. Meanwhile, Mujin has remained behind for a brief moment, and when the warriors still refuse to attack him, he chooses to advance on them instead. The man at the front is the first to fall before he can even react. Mujin moves on to the next opponent, counting each one as he brings them down. His strikes land with overwhelming force, cutting through their defenses with ease. The results are brutal enough to leave the battlefield in chaos. The warrior's leader panics but tries to stay composed, yelling for his men to form up and take Mujin down, because he is only one person. But by then, Mujin is already completely absorbed in the fight. He soon decides there is no point in keeping count anymore. Instead, he focuses entirely on removing them from the battle. Mujin charges through the crowd with his massive sword in hand. He cuts through them with frightening ease, as though they were inexperienced fighters. One unfortunate warrior is struck so badly that he is instantly taken out of the fight. Yet the squad leader still believes they can defeat Mujin by keeping a rigid formation and attacking all at once. He cannot understand how first-rate warriors are struggling so much against a single opponent. As the situation continues to collapse around them, the squad leader orders several of his men to target the carriage and go after Mujin's siblings. They accept the command and immediately rush toward the carriage. Nosak holds his position, ready to prove why he was entrusted with protecting the children. They all rush him at once, but he holds their advance back with the reach of his long weapon. One of them takes a heavy blow to the head from Nosak's weapon. That single strike makes it clear that Nosak is not someone they can take lightly. Nosak begins praising himself, boasting about being one of the 4 brothers. Even the children feel second-hand embarrassment and have to cover their heads because of how awkward it sounds. Nosak drives them away with a wild and forceful charge. Then, out of nowhere, 2 arrows fly in from the left. Both arrows strike Nosak in the shoulder. He turns toward that side and notices the 2 arrows lodged there. They had been aimed at his head, but they missed and struck his shoulder instead. With the archers shifting the flow of the fight, the squad charges straight at Nosak. Nosak panics as he realizes they are about to swarm him. At that moment, Mujin flashes past like a blur. He swiftly takes down the archers in a single movement, and he does the same to the fighters trying to surround Nosak. Mujin moves so quickly that even his own siblings fail to realize it was him. The squad leader shouts with all his strength, ordering his men to keep up the pressure. But before he can react, Mujin reaches him and ends him instantly. Meanwhile, the fight returns to Jinhwa and Myeongun, with Jinhwa desperately trying to push him back. His strength is simply on another level. He mocks her, asking if she has spent all these years merely playing around. Angered by his taunt, Jinhwa strikes Myeongun with a stronger palm technique, yet the attack only makes him demand even more. Elsewhere, Hyunwoo begins to lose the upper hand. This gives Gyak the opening he needs to grab him. He then hurls him down hard against the ground. Hyunwoo urgently releases his technique in response. Gyak avoids every move with ease, telling Hyunwoo there is no chance he will let himself be hit again. Gyak overpowers Hyunwoo and lands a crushing punch to his chest. The impact is severe enough to make Hyunwoo cough up blood. After injuring his chest, he seizes Hyunwoo again and tosses him far away as if he weighs nothing at all. At the same time, Jinhwa is on the verge of overpowering Myeongun. She prepares a powerful technique, only to see Hyunwoo thrown down like discarded trash. The sight breaks her focus. That moment gives Myeongun the chance to strike her in the stomach. He follows by forcing her head down into the ground. It looks like the 2 of them are about to meet their end, but Mujin appears at the last second and blocks the attack. He sends Gajak flying away with a powerful kick. At the same time, he turns his attention to Myeongun. Gyak rushes in from behind, hoping to catch Mujin off guard. However, Mujin reacts almost immediately. He makes Gyak pay for it by severing his left arm before Gyak can even blink. Gyak quickly uses a healing technique on himself to keep the wound from worsening. Jinhwa supports Hyunwoo and urges him to get a hold of himself. Mujin tells the twins that he may have used his technique a little too soon. That is why he only managed to take Gajak's hand. Still, he promises that his next strike will make sure their ugly heads are dealt with. Myeongun turns around, surprised that Mujin managed to defeat 30 first-rate warriors all on his own. He openly acknowledges Mujin's impressive strength, but Gyak is furious and tells Myeongun to stop messing around, saying he only wants to take Mujin down. Myeongun accepts his words without argument. The 2 then begin gathering their power, something they have not done for a long time. Seeing this, Jinhwa realizes they are finally about to reveal their true strength. She warns Mujin through telepathy, telling him to stay alert because the 2 are extremely dangerous together. Mujin thanks her for the warning and tells her he will keep it in mind. The 2 charge at him at the same time, but Mujin raises his sword like a shield and uses it to stop their first attack. However, he quickly realizes the 2 of them are starting to force him back. Before he can fully react, he senses their attack traveling through his sword. The impact strikes him with tremendous force. Mujin is on the verge of being overpowered. Then Hyunwoo and Jinhwa step in, using their techniques to create an opening for Mujin. But their interference only brings them another burst of pain. The twins punish them harshly for getting involved in the fight. At that moment, Mujin tells them both not to interfere anymore. He says he will deal with the twins on his own. Hearing Mujin's bold words, the twins increase the intensity of their attacks. They want to see how he intends to stop both of them alone. Mujin throws himself fully into the battle and begins fighting with reckless determination. He drives a kick straight into Myeonjin's face. Then he slams his head against Gajak's face. He nearly lands a decisive strike on Gak, but Gok barely manages to evade it. Myunggun strikes Mujin hard in the chest. Mujin manages to block the blow with his sword. Still, the force sends him sliding backward. Two then release a combined technique. It is known as the Fire Dragon Destructive Palm Strike. Mujin's sword is unable to fully stop it. The force of the attack passes straight into his body. Mujin is blasted far away by the impact. He only comes to a stop after crashing into a tree. Things turn dangerous as flames begin spreading across his chest. Hyunwoo and Jinhua panic at the sight, knowing exactly how serious the consequences could be. Mujin drops to his knees and feels the fire energy coursing through him, realizing that if he cannot suppress it, it will burn him from within. The twins mock him, saying that in 7 minutes his internal organs will begin to burn, leaving him with no hope. Gyak then suggests they finish Mujin off before that happens. Instead of frightening him, those words ignite Mujin's fighting spirit. The two rush toward him again with their powerful palm technique. Mujin blocks it with his right hand and forces them to stay locked in place. The twins sneer at him, asking if he truly believes he can withstand their attack. They claim even thick armor would be useless against it. Mujin then chooses to rely on reflective energy. He redirects the fire energy, causing it to rebound with tremendous force. Gejek cries out in pain, and the moment Mjungun turns to check on him, Mujin swings his sword with his left hand. With one clean strike, he brings both of them down. Everyone watching is left completely stunned by what just happened. Even so, the fire energy has already begun taking hold inside Mujin. He coughs up blood mixed with burning heat. His allies immediately start rushing toward him. However, the two elders warn the children not to come any closer. They explain that the fire energy could spread to them if they are careless. The two can only watch helplessly as their brother suffers. Struggling through the pain, Mujin tells Nosak to fetch the lesser purifying pill from his bag. Nosak quickly runs over to retrieve the pill. Mujin immediately swallows it without wasting a moment. Mujin says he must purge the fire energy and tells them to guard him while he does it. He orders them to secure every direction around the area, while warning them not to come too close. Mujin sits in a cultivation posture and understands how critical the situation is. Any further delay could endanger his meridians, so he must use the pill's inner energy to restrain the fire. He forces all the fire energy into his middle core, and he releases the gathered fire energy through his mouth. It looks almost as though he has become a dragon. After driving the fire energy out of his body, he loses consciousness. Hyunwoo quickly checks his condition. He confirms that the fire energy has been removed, but Jinhua says they must hurry to Ganluo County at once. Nosak lifts Mujin and carries him into the carriage. As they continue their journey toward Ganlu, his siblings clearly look anxious, wondering whether he will truly be alright. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo and Jinhua can hardly believe what happened. Mujin had managed to defeat two dangerous demonic martial artists entirely on his own. Several days later, at the Ganlo's County Infirmary, Hua Dojin and Soyeon walk into Mujin's room carrying a plate of food for him, only to discover that he is no longer there. Before they can panic, they hear noises coming from outside. When they peer out through the window, they find Mujin already training, swinging his massive sword while sweat runs down his body. He looks closely at the burn mark left on his right palm, and understands just how dangerous the twins' technique truly was. While he is focused on this, his siblings arrive. They look deeply worried since Mujin is supposed to rest in bed for a month, yet he is already up and moving. Mujin reassures both of them that he has recovered enough. Then he tells them to pack their things so they can leave for Mount Song. During the trip to Mount Song, everyone enjoys themselves, almost as though Mujin had not recently come close to death. However, in the areas around Ganluo and Saicheng that they passed through, rumors began spreading about Mujin defeating the Fire Shadow Twin Elders. The news quickly caused a major commotion throughout the city. After several days, they finally arrive at the home of the Shaolin Temple, where the Orthodox Murim tournament will take place. As soon as they step down from the carriage, the children are amazed by the grand buildings and statues around them. Mujin is surprised to see that every building he once destroyed has already been restored. Hyunwoo tells them he must go meet his colleagues, but he assures them that he has arranged lodging for them in the inner house. A monk then steps forward and guides them on their way. The children hurry inside, unable to hide their excitement. At the same time, two suspicious figures watch them from a balcony. The young master seems to be harboring sinister intentions toward Mujin. He then orders his assistant to summon someone named Dongo, saying he will accept whatever responsibility comes afterward, as long as he gets the chance to eliminate Mujin. Elsewhere, Hyunwoo meets the temple elder, Hyungak, and tells him that he has finally taken a disciple. Gok asks Hyunwoo who this disciple is. Hyunwoo asks whether he still remembers the man Haiguang discovered in the past. Gak says he certainly remembers Mujin, the madman. He also knows Mujin is now called the Hidden Dragon of Sichuan, and asks if Mujin is Hyunwoo's disciple. Hyunwoo explains that his disciple is actually Mujin's younger brother. Hyunwoo tells Gak that Hua Dojin also has the talent of a heavenly martial body, and adds that the boy possesses excellent character and remarkable endurance. Gak Gak is pleased for Hyunwoo, knowing that his long struggle to find a disciple has finally ended. Hyunwoo explains that Hwadojin cannot be entered into the Buddhist records because he is the second son of a branch family, and apologizes for leaving such secret arts outside the sect. Gak tells Hyunwoo it does not matter since Hwadojin is still their disciple. Hyunwoo bows and thanks him for understanding. He then informs Gak that they were attacked by the Fire Shadow twins on the way there. Gak is shocked and asks if Hyunwoo's disciple is safe. Hyunwoo says he is, explaining that the enemies had prepared an ambush for them. Hyunwoo says he witnessed Mujin's strength himself, as Mujin defeated 30 first-rate martial artists alone before bringing down the twins. Gak can barely believe it, knowing Mujin has only just reached adulthood. Hyunwoo confirms it, adding that Mujin suffered internal injuries but recovered quickly, proving how extraordinary his body is. Gak is relieved that the troublesome fire twins have finally been dealt with. Hyunwoo then says they cannot simply ignore this matter. Gak agrees, saying it is time to teach the unorthodox sect a lesson. Hyunwoo then asks him to report the matter to their leader, First Emperor Haimun. Meanwhile, Mujin and his siblings are shown to the room where they will be staying. However, the monk tells them that outsiders are forbidden from entering the Repentance Cavern behind the Great Hall. Soyeon excitedly asks Mujin if they can look around, and Mujin agrees, though he tells them to bring Nosaka with them. As they explore the area, they are completely amazed by everything they see. A short while later, Hwadojin accidentally bumps into another child around his age. Although they both ran into each other, Hwadojin still apologizes first, but the rude child takes things further by calling Hwadojin and Soyeon beggars. It turns out that this spoiled child is Boin Dongho, the second son of Boin Manor. Dongho tells Hwadojin that if he wants to apologize properly, he should get down on his knees. When Soyeon hears this, she completely loses her temper. She yells at him, demanding to know who he thinks he is to speak such nonsense. Soyeon calms herself and tells her brother they should just leave, since Dongho clearly seems unreasonable. Dongho then tries to strike Soyeon while her back is turned, but Hwadojin steps in and blocks the attack. Dongho tries to go head-to-head with Hwadojin. Instead, he is the one forced backward. Dongho smiles and praises Hwadojin for managing to block his strike. At that moment, Dongho's bodyguards rush in, shouting at Hwadojin and demanding to know how he dared touch their young master. However, Nosak's aura quickly overpowers theirs as he states that Dongho was the one who attacked first, so there is no reason for them to simply stand by. Nosak's presence makes the two men hesitate. Dongho orders them to back off and stay out of it. Then he steps forward once more. Hwadojin scolds him for striking Soyeon from behind, saying that is not how orthodox martial artists behave. Soyeon then pulls Hwadojin away, saying they should leave because fighting inside the temple would only create trouble for Mujin. Just as they are about to walk away, Dongho starts running his mouth, saying their brother lost his mind after being struck by the same technique he had just used on Soyeon. He reveals it was the 7-wound fist strike, then rudely says he would have liked to send them to join their brother too. That is the final straw for both of them, and they turn around to punch him at the same time. The combined blow sends him flying far away. Bodyguards immediately cry out in alarm. They try to go after Hwadojin and Soyeon. That finally gives Nosak the excuse he needs to release his anger. With a single strike, he knocks both of them down. He makes it clear that adults should not interfere in a children's fight. With the two bodyguards removed from the situation, Hwadojin and Soyeon properly close in on Dongho. They intend to teach him the price of insulting their brother. Punches come from every direction. The two hammer him with blow after blow. Meanwhile, Nosak cheers them on from behind. Hwadojin and Soyeon stand firmly over him. They tell Dongho that whatever happens next is his own fault, because they had already been ready to leave. Dongho stares in fear as the two show him what happens when he crosses the wrong people. At the same time, Mujin has returned to the room. He hears the commotion outside and senses that a fight has started, but he chooses not to concern himself with it.